OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
7:30 Friday morning. A very good morning to you, and I hope life is good with you and you're looking forward to the weekend sport. Owen, how are you keeping?
Yeah, good, Adrian. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, really pumped now for the weekend, and we've loads to get through over the course of the show. But there, for people who were paying attention last night or have woken up this morning, there is some unusual developments in the world of Irish basketball. With last night, its CEO Bernard O'Byrne, and desperate stuff, really. Commentary from the dark ages, you'd have to say. He was took to social media last night and musing on whether the Sterling incident was a penalty or not. He had a play on words on the Black Lives Matter movement that, to put it very mildly, was ill-advised at absolute best. There's been a statement released. I'm not going to show you the comment, but here's the response to that comment that Basketball Ireland put up on the website last night. Basketball Ireland CEO Bernard O'Byrne has deleted a recent social media post which made reference to an incident at Euro 2020. The comment was made from his personal account. Mr. O'Byrne said, "My choice of words commenting on a penalty incident were not thought out. It was an error of judgment and I wholeheartedly apologise for the comments." Basketball Ireland then go on to say they'd like to stress that it's around its ongoing commitment to inclusion and basketball's diverse community, which has been led by Mr. O'Byrne in recent years. So that's the statement that's come out in response to that. And even the statement is hurriedly released, I would say, last night. My choice of words commenting on a penalty incident were the words used by Bernard O'Byrne in this regard, which really does not capture, I don't think, the depth of sentiment that people will have been deeply disaffected by Basketball Ireland and by Bernard O'Byrne. Obviously, by inference, following on from these comments, it really deeply undermines the ethos. Basketball Ireland are talking about, I'm not familiar with their commitment, as they say in the statement, to inclusion, but it really deeply undermines that, and as I said, really deeply disaffects and offends Basketball Ireland members, players, coaches, and people well beyond that. So he talks about not commenting on a penalty incident, but commenting on a movement there that for 15 months obviously has touched every corner of the planet, that's changed mindsets, that's changed cultures, and it really feels that the post was so out of whack last night. As I said, that's really putting it mildly. It feels like the statement is quite out of whack as well, that he's clarifying that he was commenting on a penalty incident and that his thoughts were not thought out. They were hugely offensive, was really the short story on that, and it's not something on that a statement I don't think is going to make go away.
No, probably the sense there that you have to get something out and get in front of that story last night. Maybe it's not the last we've heard of it, and it probably won't be, to be honest. Like this, when you see this come in, I didn't see this now until this morning, to be honest, but it's almost like this has to be fake. These are the sorts of comments that you rarely see, you occasionally see, I should say, on social media, and they are disgusting remarks, as you say, but then to see it coming from the CEO of a big sports organisation in Ireland is just beyond bizarre. To be honest, just the entire situation, it is very, very strange. Just it's almost as if he was trying to post off a different account or a fake account, and all of a sudden it's his own name appearing, and it's head scratching, really, that somebody in a position like his own can think that was an okay thing to put beside his own name publicly. Not that should matter, not that having your name attached to it should matter whatsoever, but if you look at it on that level, it just is a mad thing to do.
Yeah, it's desperate, and I think that's where we leave it for the minute. It's going to run and run, I've absolutely no doubt about that. But as I said, I don't think the statement is going to fully satisfy people. It will leave, I think, more question marks than it's answered, and you would expect to hear from Bernard O'Byrne. Our door is certainly open in that regard at some point over the course of the day, over the next few days. Obviously, as I mentioned at the top, it's a monster weekend of sport again. The GAA, I mean, I might say that the GAA is slightly disappointing this weekend in terms of we don't need to go through any permutations on of how people should manage their weekends, viewing and listening over the course of the weekend in that regard. A couple of okay games, I guess. but by and large, it's not a huge amount of fixtures, and some of them aren't great. But obviously, the Euro 2020 final is on our doorstep now, and there's lots of coverage of it again in the papers this morning, as yourself and Joe were pointing out yesterday. It's very much a repeat again, and I won't quite have the England jersey on me on Sunday night, but I do think that, like the stories again this morning, that they are going to give the players themselves are in line to bag about 10 million quid essentially if England go ahead and win this thing, and that they're going to give a large portion of that to the NHS. Like, these are the sort of stories, right, that for 96 and 2000 and all the other tournaments that England came really close to all the other tournaments England were at and then came quite close to winning. Like, it's at this point in the week that there were stories in the back pages of all the tabloids that were, negatively impacting on England's preparation, pointing out various, the drunken nights out and all that sort of stuff. And now you pick up your paper and it's like, oh my God, could this group of people be any nicer?
Yeah, I think that's what people have tapped into really with this group, that if you forget the relationship that we've had with this team, which is basically getting bored because Ireland don't have a team at most tournaments and trying to get on the bandwagon of anybody but England and anybody that's playing England. I think I think if you separate that from the playing group, obviously you've got two very different outlooks on it. So this is obviously something that you've nurtured over the last couple of weeks. I sense that maybe pre-tournament or maybe pre-build up to tournaments, you weren't necessarily sure who you'd root for, and then as I guess we got to know this group a bit more and their relationship with each other and their public pronouncements and all that sort of stuff, that's kind of what's drawn you in.
Me specifically?
Yeah.
No, I've been all in for about 2 years ago. Like, do you remember the crystal ball gazing we did? Would it have been January, just pre-COVID, January 2020? And we gave our predictions for who's going to win Euro 2020, and I said England.
Oh,
so,
well remembered.
It was kind of, I wish I'd remembered that 24 hours ago and we could actually sort of show what Nostradamus I am. But we're going to, basically from that moment on, I had no choice. Obviously, I got to get behind them. And if my ego had permitted, I probably would have ditched them out when it came to reaffirming our, when we did our latest crystal ball gazing for the Euros. But I doubled down on them. But yeah, like they are. Like, look at it. There's plenty of reasons to go the opposite direction. Like, you listen obviously to the booing and all of that sort of stuff, and like there is going to be an element of it that'll be insufferable, obviously, for the next few years. But I think that for that, if you forget about that stuff for a minute, as hard and all that is, like just that group of players, how incredible they are, the manager and all that sort of stuff. And also, maybe everybody was aware of this, but I certainly came brand new to it this morning, that Munster Rugby is essentially responsible for England for football coming home.
Go on.
Were you aware of this?
I wasn't really, to be honest, no.
So Bryce Kavanagh was a former head of fitness, Australian guy, former head of fitness at Munster Rugby up to about sort of, I think, 7 or 8 years ago, and was there, came in under Tony McGann and then left, as did a lot of things, during the Rob Penny years. And he went back to work in Melbourne, I think maybe one of the rugby league franchises, and then after that got snapped up obviously by Gareth Southgate. But he's the guy, you know the way every morning again you pick up your papers and there's like a picture of Marcus Rashford jumping around in some inflatable unicorns?
Yeah.
This is the guy that's responsible for the inflatable unicorns. And look at it, I mean, there we go. They look good.
It's for me, it's like the Saka on the unicorn is the iconic image of Euro 2020. It's beautiful. So sorry,
that's Bryce Kavanagh behind there.
This is our sorry. We were claiming this, so the unicorns have been a key component.
Yeah, I mean, the guy lived in Ireland for about 2 years. He obviously had an impact at Munster Rugby. And let's not get into the details of it too much, but essentially Munster Rugby are responsible for it. He himself is responsible for nutrition, psychology and sports science at England. So he's the guy that
Big
says
brief.
After the game, let's not stay in and around Wembley. Let's get back out to St George's Park. Everybody's really comfortable there. Raheem Sterling has been there since, been going out to St George's Park since he's a kid, very familiar with it. And so yes, it'll take us till 3 a.m. to get out there, but we'll all wake up in our own beds in the morning and being comfortable surrounds. We can get out to training. We don't have to get through London traffic to get out there. He's the brains behind all of that stuff, which seems so obvious when you say it out loud. But yeah, Bryce Kavanagh, former Munster Rugby, and Munster Rugby responsible for football coming home.
Well, this is it. Another reason to hop on the bandwagon, another reason to dry your tears on Monday morning when it inevitably happens on Sunday. And like I think that the groundswell of opinion is that it is going to happen, right? I think that like that there is more. Obviously, we've seen this time and time again. There's more at play in a major tournament than who's got the better players. But I actually think England has the better players, and they've got this, I guess, crest of. They're just cresting towards this moment, and we've seen that over the last couple of weeks. They've actually got better in certain aspects, I think, as the tournament has progressed. Certainly, if you compare their group stage performances to their knockout stage performances, it's almost as if they've got better when the pressure's been at its highest. They were quite good when they went 1-0 down the other day, which was one of the questions we certainly had of them. And this Sunday, it's happening. It's happening, and of course, that comes with its own set of complications. The slow aftermath of that, and coming in here on Monday morning. You might just have to pull the plug on the show in general on Monday morning.
Out of respect. House private only, is that the kids' expression?
I think so.
The point about England and the going behind is a fascinating one, because like we hadn't seen it obviously up to during the week, and how they respond to that against Italy. Like, you could say, like, your point is well made about England going 1-0 down and getting it back obviously before half time, and probably obviously should have gone ahead maybe at that stage, but the fact that it took a dodgy penalty for them to actually get the next one would be the slight concern I'd have going into the Italy game. Like, I think there's loads of reasons I think England might get it done. Maybe Italy, certainly an older squad. I mean, given that England's age profile, I think his average age is around 24 thereabouts. Are
you buying that? I'm not buying that whatsoever. The whole
tiredness,
the old thing. I think Chiellini and Bonucci have been outstanding, and they've been two of their best players, and I think that's experience rather than being old. I'm not buying the ageing thing with Italy whatsoever. I just think that England just have better players. I think they have a better attack, certainly, in Harry Kane. Arguably, if we say, let's limit it to centre forwards, definitely the best centre forward going into this tournament, I think, even better than Romelu Lukaku. If you take everything that we've seen over the last few years, and we just hadn't seen that in the group stages, now he's back, and granted, most of his great work the other night came dropping deep and doing what he was doing for Spurs.
Diving around the pitch,
doing what he was doing for Spurs, linking up with Heung-min Son, but instead this time it was obviously Bukayo Saka and Raheem Sterling who were just devouring some of his great through balls. Like, I think that's the level where England are at that Italy perhaps can't match. It's the attack. I think the old thing is actually a false narrative, personally, about this Italian side. I'd trust Bonucci and Chiellini more than Maguire and Stones, potentially, even.
No, look, that's fair. And the thing is, like, it all depends what happens on Sunday night, right? Like, Italy get beaten 2-0, everybody's like, oh, that crowd of our lads, sure, they never could have lasted the pace. It'll be totally driven by whatever the outcome is. But look, I do agree with your point about England being, like, they probably have the best group of players in the tournament. They are one of the most exciting teams, if not the most exciting team to look at. Like, Sterling at full pace, he's probably the player of the tournament, right? Like, he's been absolutely exceptional. I think that, like, also it's not just a team of 11 players who Bryce Callaghan has been unbelievably managed to keep fit by and large over the course of the entire tournament. It is the fact that they can bring Grealish off the bench and then take him off again if needs be, but that they have those options that if the game is going against them, they can play it whichever way you want, and they're just like, if you forgot that they were England for a few minutes, they're a frightening proposition. They're really an incredible team to look at.
Absolutely, and they have, again, they've just flicked the switch almost, it seems, almost after that Scotland game. The 0-0 was kind of the kick they needed, and quite often these England teams just completely collapse after those early warnings, and it's just not happening anymore, which is great from their perspective, but for us not so much. We did miss you here in studio last week, Adrian. That does tend to happen. You were off designing fashion. What's going on here? I've briefly been scrolling through your Twitter feed here. This is at Who's Adrian Barry. Inspired by Donny's moment of magic in Ohio on Monday, I've designed a T-shirt. They're available for order with all profits going to charity. It's brilliant, fast, quick thinking idea, Adrian. What's the crack?
I was really struck by, like, several million people have seen Donny's clip with the MAGA man at an Ohio rally about 2 weeks ago, where he just sidles up to this guy. The clip in its entirety is 10 seconds long. He sidles up to the guy that's on the front of the T-shirt there and says to him, hey sir, what's your name? And he replies, as it says on the front of the T-shirt, my name is Go Yourself. And Donny's reply really struck me on, and that was kind of the essence really of where all of this has come from. He didn't flinch, and I know if I was in his shoes, definitely a smile would have crept across my face, but he didn't flinch and just delivered an absolutely killer line. and says, are you from Ohio? And it just totally cut the rug from under the MAGA man's argument and his entire cultural standpoint. I was really struck by how powerful it was for somebody, obviously, I think Donny is in his mid-20s, but not he doesn't have dozens of years of experience of doing that stuff, and he's really impressed people obviously over the last couple of years with his determination to get stuck into the conspiracy theorists and QAnon and the Trump supporters and all that sort of stuff. But I just thought it was like, it felt like he was built to for that moment. Thought it was a powerful response, and so that struck me, and I thought, I wonder. The difficulty I had on was that was the line that I had, that I was trying to work with, and I feel slightly bad that it's been relegated to the back of the t-shirt, but obviously the context is on the front of it, and yeah, that was kind of where it came from. So I got on to Donny and just said to him, listen, if I was to design up this thing, and I sent him on a couple of screen grabs of it, would we sell a few for charity? Would you be happy to get behind that? And he was up for it. And then I got on to the Muslim Sisters of Charity of Era, who do unbelievable work with homeless people around the GPO, and they were happy to receive the funds from it. So we set it live, and it's been selling like hotcakes. There's about most of the orders are coming from the US. It got picked up by Forbes.com during the weekend, which, as you can imagine from my mentions, drove them absolutely bonkers. And it's occupied most of my evenings between now and then. And I've sort of technically shut down sales. There's still stuff. I've set up an email address, which is abconcox@gmail.com. If people want to get on board, it's still emails coming in, and we'll still take orders for it. But it's been bonkers.
Well, you may have spoken to Forbes about this, but you have not spoken on OTB AM about it. So I think you need to reopen the window for sales. Give Adrian Barry their DM, follow him on Twitter if you want one at home, and I think he'll sort you out before anything closes.
Yeah, and I must say as well, there's been loads of people that have really helped to. I've been trying to drive down costs because the initial quote I had for actually printing the t-shirts was prohibitive. I'm charging 35 for the t-shirts, and I'm getting them made. I found a supplier that's making them much cheaper for me, so that's fantastic. And I want to thank On Post as well, who've come on board to sort us out for loads of stationery and postage and stuff like that as well. They've really been brilliant. So it's genuinely, and obviously it's the cliche, but genuinely been a really good team effort, and we will at some point close off orders on, but thank you for reopening the order book there. We will happily take orders again for the next couple of days and see how that goes. But yeah, so that's it. They're there for order. Get your orders in. It's going to a great cause. Are we leaving it there? Is that we park it up on?
Oh well, I need to get my order in as well. I mean, it's just been a massive moment for our county, given Donny's now on an Adrian Barry.
Sure. Listen, you sideswiped me there as to why this came up as a topic at all.
I mean, and the two boys in Wembley the other day, it's just the fashionistas of Kerry and the kind of connection with wearing t-shirts has gone to a whole new level this week.
Yeah, no, and Kerry should be rightly proud of him. He's doing wondrous things. So that's that. Some comments coming into us here. Shifty lad on YouTube. Genuine question: has COVID actually helped the England team bond and the likes of Grealish behave? Just a thought.
It's a good question, and I think that the man management of Jack Grealish has been really interesting. Like, I do not buy this idea that there was any bit insulting or embarrassing or bad management to sub him on and take him off the other night, given the extraordinary circumstances that they were in. But I do think Southgate has gone some way to ensuring that characters like Grealish are just having the time of their life.
Yeah. All right. You are watching OTB AM. We're brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. There's a bit of a flavour of what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock for you. Martin Lipton will be on the way very shortly. Football writer to talk all things Euro 2020 final. We'll tell you what's happening in the back pages after that. We've got our quick picks. We'll see how the table stands. I think that'll be the most important thing that we do from the GAA quick picks for you at 8 this morning. Wimbledon, and we're going to be reflecting on that epic 2001 final between Pat Rafter and Goran Ivanisevic in the company of Cullen Buhig, our resident tennis nut. That'll be a classic game clubs coming your way after that. Fiona Hayes is going to react to the Ireland team that's been named to take on the USA Eagles this weekend. A bit of Lions chat there as well, I'm sure. Crappy quiz live in your ear holes and your eyeballs from 9:10 this morning. It's myself versus Tommy versus
Phil Egan.
Phil Egan, there we go. And it's written on the screen in front of me if I would just read it. And then Brian O'Driscoll, who was on with Nathan last night, coming away at 9:30. Phil, good morning to you.
Good morning. Looking forward to later, Adrian.
You're psyched. Listen, it's the question of the week, so I'm not going to resist it. Is it coming home?
It's either coming home or it's coming Rome. I think it's Rome.
Right. Why?
Yeah. I just think that they got through the Spain game. Obviously, they've been a lot more impressive than England. But I wouldn't say that with much confidence now. I think it's almost 50-50. But I think if anyone can deal with the occasion, it's the Italians. And if anyone will relish it, it's the Italians as well.
Who's he going to go with this sort of Saka versus everybody else selection? Is he going to go same again?
He probably got same again. I mean, Saka obviously got taken off, but he was also one of the main instigators in the equalising goal. And that is certainly an area that England can exploit then, the Italian left, because we obviously know Spinazzola's not there. Emerson did all right, I thought, the other night. He's obviously the stronger part of his game is going forward. I mean, we don't get to see that much of him because he rarely plays for Chelsea, but Mancini certainly rates him, and he's certainly rated a lot higher in Italy than he would be in England. So it's certainly an area that England would be looking to exploit. And look, if it's not working out, you have the option of just switching Saka and Sterling. So Sterling's been the main man. He's been unbelievable for England, a guy that we didn't even know would get into the starting 11 before the start of the tournament. But now he's not only is he in the conversation for player of the tournament, if he has another good performance on Sunday, he could well walk away with that award.
I agree with you entirely. You're convincing yourself now that England are going to win this.
No. I'm just talking about where you asked me about the England team selection. In terms of where I think Italy will have the upper hand is midfield, that three-man midfield. Obviously, England have an option to bring, you see it often, Harry Kane drops into midfield and gives him an extra man. But I just think that Italian midfield is a lot stronger than what England have. England are obviously going with an approach of playing two blockers in Phillips and Rice, whereas Italy have better ball players in there. But I think Italy had a tough one the other night. I think Spain starved them of the ball, which they would do to any team. So I think Italy would be quite happy to be playing England, where they're going to have a lot more possession. I'm not saying they're going to have a lot more possession than England, but they're going to have a lot more possession than they would have had against Spain, because England can't control the game the way Spain can.
We're going to see what happens on Sunday night. Phil, thanks a million. We'll talk to you later on. Live crappy quiz coming your way later this morning, 9:10 thereabouts, and we shall see. I'm sure it'll be Eoin will bring his flavour of yours, no doubt, into that. It is just gone 10 to 8. It's Friday morning. Martin Lipton is football writer with The Sun. Good morning to you, Martin. No, he's not there. We're going to come back to him in just a little bit. Interesting stuff from Phil there. He's I know he was saying that he was kind of talking himself around to England. Everything he was saying there were the reasons that I think England are going to get it done.
The Italian midfield as well kind of had a night off against Spain. Just on the armchair, watch Pedri do his thing, and then let the boys at the back sort it out whenever the attacks eventually broke down. So they might be a little bit fresher than we might have thought. They did look a bit tired at the start of the game against Spain, I thought, and then all of a sudden they miraculously came alive. So that'll be kind of an interesting one, the first 20 minutes, to see who's got the legs on Sunday.
Martin Lipton, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Football writer with The Sun, and looking ahead obviously we're all obsessed by this on both sides of the water, what's going to happen on Sunday night. We had John a few weeks ago, and I asked you a question about Gareth Southgate and what level he was at. Aston Villa was your response. Is that on the up? Has he moved further up the table now since what's going on over the last couple of weeks?
Hopefully, yes. But I wouldn't say that it's a shoo-in that a big six club would take him, because they don't tend to appoint English managers. Because none of them, are, apart from Spurs, are run by people who have any knowledge of English football, and it's purely about, the best they can get, and often those best aren't English. I think what Southgate has proven without question is that he's an outstanding manager of this group of players. He has shown tactical flexibility, he has shown maturity, and he's shown intelligence. And that's not always been the case for English managers.
One of the biggest talking points that lead into this game is, what does football coming home actually mean? Is it to do with 66, or is it to do with England inventing the game?
No, it's about a yearning to watch an England team that's any good. For years and years, they've been rubbish. It's wish fulfilment. It's like singing, we're by far the greatest team the world has ever seen when it supports Sheffield Wednesday. It's not real. It's a song. It has got no relevance outside that yearning. It harks back to the fact that England are rubbish. England's going to throw it away, going to blow it away. That's what it's about. We all know what happens in the end. We're not very good.
It sounds like you're saying that fans sing this ironically. Like, it doesn't feel like that when you're watching it.
No, but that doesn't matter. That's what the song was about. You asked me what the song was about. The fact that people take it in different ways is fine. People do interpret things differently. You can interpret one passage of Shakespeare 7 different ways. I mean, it's up to you, isn't it?
Good comparison.
This is better than Shakespeare, Martin.
Pardon?
This is better than Shakespeare.
I wouldn't say so, to be honest. Although there's drama, there's pathos, there's humour. Yeah, maybe there's a comparison there. Not sure there's too much blank verse. There's been plenty of blank verse written about it, man.
So you're telling us then that it has already come home, is what you're saying, that there is already a team that England can be proud of?
Without question. Look, this may sound really stupid, and I certainly don't think they're going to win on Sunday. I think they can win. I think after 2018, I believed and said that this was not going to be a one-off, that the quality of players coming through meant that for a period of time, England were going to be serious and genuine contenders for major honours. I've seen nothing over the last few weeks to change that view. If anything, it's strengthened and intensified, because if you look at the squad, the players who are not in the team yet but will be regularly, the Sakas and Sanchos and Bellinghams, in addition to Kane, who's still only 27, 28, Sterling still in his prime. You know, the best players have got a few years more in them, and the ones who are going to improve the team, Foden and other, are just at the beginning.
It's an amazing time to be coming to form. That's exactly the sort of situation you want to be in, given the proximity of the next World Cup. But when it comes to this Sunday, Martin, if you had to pick one area, and this can be down to England or down to Italy, what worries you more than anything else?
Italy are really good. They're living the best team in the tournament, without question. They have been hampered by the loss of the left wing back. That was a real blow for them. Donnarumma's not made a mistake. He's been absolutely outstanding. Chiellini and Bonucci at the back are rock hard. Verratti can pass you to death. All of the strikers look like they've got a goal in them. What isn't there to be scared of? You know, I mean, they're a really, really good team. But so are England. England, the first test that England had in adversity was on Wednesday night, and they came through it. But they will have to, in the words of the likes of Capello and co, suffer to win this match. They will not win this match easily. It will be won by the finest of margins, by the team that has a decision that goes their way, or has a bit of luck, or has a bit of, you know, or does something out of this world. Because when good teams meet, it is tough. The other semi-final between two outstanding teams, and Spain were brilliant, the better team on the day, they lost, because football is not a perfect match. Actually, its imperfection is what it is perfection in many ways. The best team doesn't always win. In most sports, the best team will win. That's not always the case in football.
On the point about having to sort of suffer for your art or suffer to win this thing, I was interested to see, everybody was interested to see once England conceded or once they went behind, which obviously we have evidence of in the Denmark game, and they got it back to 1-1. Is there a concern that it still needed the dodgy penalty, Martin, regardless of whether it was or it wasn't? But is there a concern that incisiveness that we all thought was there from Sterling's direct running or however it came about, everybody assumed that actually they would have the capacity to get themselves back from 1-0 down, but that they needed that penalty ultimately in the end to get past Denmark? Is that concerning?
Who cares? Honestly,
I mean in terms of the, I don't mean about the right or wrong of the penalty. I mean in terms of looking at the Italy game.
Because it isn't supposed to be easy. You don't score 4 and 5 in games. Italy have had their moments of fortune in games to win.
I mean more. Is there a concern that England aren't as incisive as everybody thought or thinks they are?
Well, and they create loads of chances. I think it's a rather limited value concept, but the expected goal was a 3-0 win. They just, Schmeichel made a couple of massive saves. Sterling should score before the first goal. Maguire's save header was a great effort. There's a mishit by Kane in front of goal. And if you're talking about penalties, what about the penalty that Kane should have had in the second half, which was a clear penalty, not given. These things happen. You get on with it. There's no point in moaning. They've scored, what is it now, 11 goals, 13 goals and conceded 1. I think that's all right. You know, it's not as if they're in a terrible mess. They've scored enough goals to win every game. You only have to score 1 more than the opposition.
Yeah, and Italy are obviously current masters and past masters at all
They're
of
a
that.
really good team. They're great. I mean, I think Chiesa's got better and better with his strength as the tournament's gone on. And whoever he plays, whether it's Belotti or, you know, they're all good players. Immobile, the most inaptly named footballer of all time, because he really is he's a very clever, skillful mover. You know, there isn't a weakness in that team at all. Jorginho has been excellent for them, setting the tone. There is the danger for England that Italy just don't let them have the ball, as happened in 2012 when Pirlo embarrassed England, and that was a 0-0 draw. England could have won that. They were played off the park, and it goes to a penalty shootout. No one was saying then, Italy didn't show enough quality in the final third. It was Italy passed England to death and deservedly won. Yeah.
I'm interested, Martin, as somebody who covers and supports Tottenham quite a bit, about the development of Harry Kane throughout this tournament. Because at the start, there was question marks about his positioning. Why is Harry Kane dropping so deep? We need him closer to goal. But the other night, we saw exactly why he drops deep. And the amount of creation of chances, the 3 expected goals, as you mentioned there, is down in large part to Harry Kane and a deeper position at times.
Yeah, because he's an outstanding player. He just didn't start very well. Well, guess what? It happens. No one can play brilliantly every game. The reality is, if you give Harry Kane 6 or 7 games on the spot, on the trot, he's probably going to score 4 or 5 goals, even if he's not playing well. As it happens, once he got 1, you can see the change in him. In fact, it was before they got kicked and was limping against Germany. And it almost seemed as if it shook him back into being Harry Kane again. But what he always does is, as a rule, is occupy defenders. And that the goal, the first goal on Wednesday, that pass, there were very few players in the world who can make that pass, even fewer centre forwards who can make that pass. Kane is one of them. But it's a pass he's made all season for Spurs. That's why he's created so many goals for Son and others, because he drops into space. And if you let him go, he kills you. And if you don't let him go, he kills you. That's how good a player he is.
And doesn't matter then which player he's passing to in that scenario, because it seemed to me that himself and Saka had a great understanding. Similarly, though, you could see any of England's attackers on that right flank, and you could see Kane getting them the ball.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they've got the pace to get there, yes, and they all got the pace to get there. That could have been Sancho, it could have been Sterling, it could have been Foden, probably couldn't have been Grealish, because he couldn't get there. But of the others, they're so fleet of foot that once that ball is played, you're begging them to deliver. And he knows where that ball's going. Now that's let's be honest, so will Italy. They'll be aware of that ball. But they did defend slightly deeper than you expected, and that was a mistake. And if they repeat that, then that gives England potential to hurt them, because you know that Sterling will drop into that little pocket as well. So England have got some significant armoury, but obviously the heavy gun is Harry Kane.
Jamie Carragher was making the point in the Telegraph this morning, Martin, that possible England win might be good news for Tottenham fans, in that it might quench a bit of Harry Kane's thirst to leave the club. Is there anything in that, or what do you now expect to happen?
Nothing happens unless someone puts the money on the table. I don't think anyone's going to pay 150 million. Therefore, he doesn't go anywhere. Because Daniel Levy will believe and calculate that with 3 years on his contract, he can get that next year with 2 years on his contract in a more buoyant market.
Is the appointment when last we had you on, we were talking about Conte, Zinedine Zidane, and all these unbelievable names that were been linked with Tottenham, and you've ended up the club have ended up with Nuno Espirito Santo. What's the view on that? Like, is it too much to read into Harry Kane's how much that impacts on Harry Kane's thinking?
I don't think it matters at all. It's purely on Daniel Levy's thinking. It will help if they can get on if he stays. And if they can't, it'll make it easier for Kane to say, look, time's up. But I don't think... Kane wants to win stuff, but he also recognises he's got a contract. And unless someone comes in and pays the money, he goes nowhere. I don't think anyone comes in and pays the money. Therefore, the manager's almost irrelevant in that regard, because the manager's just another employee. In fact, the manager gets paid less than Kane does. So,
yeah.
Does winning the Euros on Sunday quench his thirst for trophies?
No, it'll just make it stronger.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Because once you've got one, you always want another one, don't you? You know, it's like an alcoholic. You can't have one drink. You know, you've got to have the next one. For Kane, the next one, it may be that England ends up satisfying his quest for trophies. But I don't think it will.
One more on Harry Kane for me. I was listening to Ray Parlour on TalkSport this morning. They were talking about Harry Kane is a great player because he draws loads of frees. Italy are a bunch of divers.
Well, they're not. Every team's a bunch of divers. Kane gets free kicks because he protects the ball and gets fouled. He buys free kicks. There were two on Wednesday where he takes the ball wide, invites the challenge.
Yeah.
That is going to be given by every referee in every country in the world.
Is the inviting the challenge of buying a free kick not just a euphemism for diving?
No, because it's a foul. If the challenge comes in and they kick you before it's a foul. You're not allowed to do that. When other players do it, that's clever play. When English players do it, it's cheating. No, it's football.
Yeah, he could.
Diving and taking contact. Diving is when there's no contact.
Well, technically you can have both. There can be a little bit of contact and you can dive, which I think is what's happening with Harry Kane.
Well, you tell me which one of them weren't fouls.
Look, technically they are fouls, of course.
No. Which one of them weren't fouls in your mind?
No, what I'm saying is technically...
Give me the examples of the ones that weren't fouls.
Technically they are fouls, but also...
No. Well, therefore, if they're technically fouls...
Harry Kane, my point is that Harry Kane could definitely have stayed on his feet.
No. If they're technically fouls, take out technically. They're fouls. You just said it yourself.
But my point being that he could stay on his feet. Do you not think he could stay on his feet for loads of a lot of the challenges he goes down for?
If you're fouled... the problem is, unfortunately in football, if you don't go down and you're fouled, you don't get the free kick. So you take the foul. And there was one where he was cleaned out, and the fellow it was a horrific foul by the Danish fella on the England right. You know, he didn't start getting up and throwing imaginary cards around Kane. He never has and never will. When have you seen him ever do that? Now that's cheating. He never does that.
We'd spoken before as well about the particularly pre-tournament, the game in Middlesbrough with that booing of the taking the knee and how that might impact on the relationship, whether it would create a chasm between the fans and the players. It doesn't seem necessarily, and I don't know, Martin, maybe in the course of the next 5 or 6 years in the cool light of several autobiographies we get more of an insight into what the players are thinking about that, but it doesn't seem like that's created a chasm. What is the relationship like between the fans and the players now?
Well, at the moment it's outstanding. What I would say is the idiots who booed sounded a lot louder when there was no one in the ground. When there's a bigger crowd applauding and cheering, and the vast majority are, nobody even notices it. And the players know that the vast majority of supporters are backing them on this, and that's great. And it's very interesting that the GB women who are going to Tokyo are going to do exactly the same thing, which includes, of course, 2 Scots and a Welsh girl, because they believe it's about equality. Yeah. The players believe it's about equality, and the vast majority of the supporters understand that. And those who don't want to. These are the people who can impugn the motives of other people. But if you question their motives, they get the raging hump. Let's be honest. Why are they booing those few people? I'll tell you why. Because they are racists. And they're finding a justification for it by claiming it's about politics. Well, if the players say it's not about politics, then it's not about politics. It is about equality. And the vast majority of people in this country, I think, understand that. Yeah. Particularly the younger people, they very much understand it.
The unfortunate point is, and like you're right, obviously the vast majority of people aren't. It feels like it's certainly, I mean, at the very minimum, a very, very vocal minority. Like they are loud, and they are embarrassing the country with this action. They're going to embarrass the country by booing, I'm assuming, the Italian national anthem on Sunday as well.
That for me is worse, because more people do that, and I've always found it despicable. But I don't know what I can do about it. To be fair, other countries boo the anthems as well. The British anthem gets booed
Do
in
they?
plenty of places.
God, I don't remember.
I've heard it. I've
you?
seen it. I don't, and I think look, I don't even sing the anthem because I'm a Republican, so it doesn't really bother me too much. But
Listen, we're all in the same boat on that front.
but what I would say is I always respect the anthem, and I think everyone should. But I can't do it. I don't think anyone can stop it. Unfortunately, you can make as many pleas as you want. The FA do it all the time, and too few of them listen, because I'm afraid that some of them are idiots.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Is he going to go same again, or in terms of the Saka versus Foden versus Grealish conversation, how's he going to go on team selection?
I wouldn't be shocked if he started Foden. I think he might feel that someone with that technical ability might drag them out a bit. But also, we know he'll make changes. I mean, the other thing is that if it's Emerson at left back, who does he want to play against least? That will be part of the thinking as well.
And the outcome?
Oh, penalties, obviously.
If it goes that far, Martin, can I ask you on that? If it goes that far, the Kane, I was interested to hear Kane after the game the other night talk about the penalty miss in such detail, saying that he went lower than he thought it was going to go, which was a bit of a red flag in terms of a mindset of a penalty taker. I mean, I know what you're going to say, given everything you've said about Harry Kane over the last while, but if it goes that far, you're not concerned about Harry Kane, I'm assuming, and England to get it done if it goes that far? Like,
look, it's not a lottery because it's about keeping your head under pressure, but it's about who wins. You know, it's as simple as a test of 10 people and the goalkeepers. Yeah. You cannot predict the outcome of a penalty shootout unless it's against Germany. But you know, Italy have won and lost penalty shootouts. England have won and lost penalty shootouts. The one difference now is that England aren't scared of a penalty shootout anymore. It doesn't mean they win it, but they're no longer scared of it because they've won 2 on the spin. And as for Kane, you would always have Harry Kane taking a penalty. He's missed 4 in his career, and he's taken about 40. That'll do.
It's coming home is what I'm feeling, and I'm all behind it. Martin, we'll catch up with you hopefully again soon. Always a pleasure. Thanks a million.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Martin Lipton, football writer with The Sun there, with some interesting stuff ahead of the game on Sunday. Plenty of comments coming in. Fergus Kyo on YouTube, good morning to you, Fergus, saying people banging on about what nice people the England players are. Do we infer that the players on the other teams are all bowsies? I mean, we don't. We don't at all. It's not. No, we don't. England are just exceptionally brilliant culture about them and an exceptionally brilliant bunch of people, I think. Is that
maybe it's a comparison between this England team and previous England teams rather than a comparison between this England team and the other Euro 2020 teams.
Yeah, I don't know. I think part of it is a comparison between this England team and all the England teams that went before, and their lack of self-awareness. But it just doesn't seem to be afflicting this current group.
No, if you're comfortable enough to cannonball in aboard a unicorn into a swimming pool, then I think that's the sort of character you're looking for in your national team. 13
minutes past 8. Pack show still to come on OTB AM. We're going to hear from the former Ireland rugby star Fiona Hayes. There's our GAA quick picks to come shortly. We're going to be talking Wimbledon and lots of tennis chat, including a classic game club looking back on 2001 and that famous final with Cullen Buig. There's a live crappy quiz as well, but we're back after these with the sports pages.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The football pod with Paddy and Andy.
The opposition can't smell blood this year. We're as well pack it in, because even if Cumberford's kickouts are as good as Cluxton's, every team is taking a step forward.
Download the OTB Sports app and subscribe to the GAA podcast feed now.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna Automower.
Automower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna Automower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Nearly 8:15. It's Friday morning's OTB AM. We're delighted to have you with us this morning, and there's loads of comments coming in, particularly off the back of that chat with Martin Lipton about the Euros final on Sunday. We'll come to those in a little bit, so do keep your comments coming in, whether it's to do with the football or not. There's so much interest ahead of that game. But Will probably sums it up best here on YouTube. He says Lipton is a good mix of being a patriot but also willing to call out the nonsense, which I think is probably all of our feelings here. So do keep your comments coming into us on the Euros final and the other stuff as well. We're going to tell you what's happening across the back pages and on otbsports.com this morning. Look at the website for you this morning, see what's going on there. Brian O'Driscoll's comments on the Lions, how farcical the Lions tour could bankrupt them, and obviously there's a huge concern and considerations to that. Patrick McElhenney is off to Derry City, and as the papers are reporting this morning, that Vinnie Perth is not happy with the timing of that. 18,000 are going to get into the Leinster Hurling final and the football semis. Please do not boo the foreign national anthem, say some England fans. It's definitely going to happen this weekend, and there's plenty more besides as well up on otbsports.com for you this morning. But a look at some of the back pages is going to start with the Irish Daily Mail, who've got that story. Dundalk Press, but Perth fumes at Derry, the timing of their announcement of the signing of Patrick McElhenney there. Just the ticket, major crowd boost for Leinster Hurling Championship final rights, Philip Lanigan there, and 18,000 fans to be allowed in for those games. That's the Irish Daily Mail for you. The Times, England give prize money to the NHS. That's the 10 million quid that they'll make of the 40 plus, if indeed they do go ahead and football does come home this weekend. Unlike yesterday, there's loads of coverage of the Euro final in the papers this morning. Oh, whatever happened yesterday, but it's all there today, and you can see the lads Jadon Sancho and Bukayo Saka enjoying the pool. I don't know, what do they do, Eoin, at those England camps? Is it like, listen, cameramen, come on in, the pool is open, this is your opportunity to come in and take loads of snaps?
Yeah, no, they're training and they're like, the cameramen are ready now, go into the pool and pretend you're having fun. Deep down they all absolutely hate each other. They like, I mean, they hate unicorns, they hate camaraderie, and the whole nice guy thing is just a facade.
The Irish Examiner, value added talent is the headline here. The players who could earn a big move after Euro 2020, and plenty more about Euros inside on the Examiner there. The Sun, I'm shout for more. Southgate has roaring desire ahead of the final. It's Lions in wait. Warren Gatland could be forced to leave 2 players and a coach in Johannesburg when the Lions travel to Cape Town on Sunday. That is obviously ahead of that Lions game. That's the Sun for you this morning. Gareth Southgate, picture of him on the back page of The Guardian for you this morning, clapping the fans after the game. Wembley show of emotion. I couldn't be prouder to be an Englishman, says Gareth Southgate ahead of that game. I won't be trembly at Wembley. I think we need to design a little sting on. I'm having that one this morning.
Your top of the morning for you.
Italian star Verratti says that his team will relish the red hot atmosphere and predicts an epic showdown, and I think that's what all of us neutrals certainly are hoping that it's going to be. Marco Verratti claiming that Italy will be fired up by the red hot atmosphere there. Leinster final set to see 18,000 fans as the supplement drops out of the Herald this morning. And Sean Foran celebrates after Dublin's first half goal in their Airgrid Leinster under 20 football championship quarter-final win over Wicklow last night, and it was tight in the end, and Wicklow I think missed a penalty, missed a couple of goal chances, and it could have very easily have gone the opposite way. I was watching the Westmeath Longford game last night on a pretty dodgy YouTube stream, and it was an unusual game in that it felt like defences were kind of on top. Westmeath came out on top, obviously, is the short story here.
I was actually watching the penalties. Good crack.
You watched the penalties, yeah, they were very good, and everybody was I was certainly very confused as to what was going to actually happen with the penalties, and certainly the commentators were, and actually the officials were when it boiled down to it. So the new ruling is essentially that you nominate 5 players from your team, and interestingly both squads had nominated loads of subs. There must have been 3 or 4 subs on both sides that had been part of that party of 5. You nominate your 5, they stand up in whatever order they go, 1 to 5, and after that it was 4 all. So they went to sudden death, at which point you've got to stick with your 5, but you can change the order, and both Longford and Westmeath did, and Westmeath scored theirs. Longford ballooned it over the bar, and it's Westmeath who go on to the semi-final.
Go on, give us the big one, Adrian.
give it the binging. Look at Westmeath are coming. They have a really good management team there on, and look at they had who did they beat in the last round? Was it? I can't remember. But look at they're cooking along nicely, and it's great to see the second best team in Leinster, that the conveyor belt is their own of like exceptional talent coming through. There was one Jordan McDonald came off the bench last night, scored 4 or 5 points off the bench, looked deadly accurate. The future's bright.
And for the seniors as well, another Leinster final, I'm sure you're thinking.
They have who are they playing?
Kildare on Sunday week.
Kildare on Sunday week. Yeah. Look, at Kildare are relative minnows when it comes to this, as I've often pointed out on about Dublin and Westmeath's dominance of Leinster. The Irish Independent for you this morning, obviously more news on that Leinster final attendance there. Patrick McAnally on the move, writes Dan McDonnell, and Adeleke's omission from relay squad. A big surprise, writes Carl Dennehy there. Teenage sprinter, the big omission from the Irish Olympic athletics team for the Scott of 25, who was confirmed last night. The star, no more Mr. Nice Guy. That's not true, really. He'll continue to be a lovely man. Keane is impressed by Nasty. Southgate, he was making those comments in his ITV punditry the other night, that Gareth can be nasty when needs be. That was the Grealish putting him on and taking him off again. And loads of other stuff about the GAA inside there. That is the papers for you this morning at 8:20. You are watching OTB AM, brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. And please do keep your comments coming in. So where are you going to watch the game on Sunday on? What's the big plan Sunday night on the Lash?
No, I'm afraid not. We've either got a National Day of Celebration or National Day of Mourning 2.0 on Monday, so you've got to rest up, be fully alert and ready to go on Monday for whatever the future may hold. What's your plan? A cheese board?
No, I don't think I'll do a cheese board this weekend.
It's not that special. We're trying to replicate that Harry Kane pizza and actually putting it in the oven and cooking it. What
was the Harry Kane pizza?
Seen the thing that went viral from Asda somewhere in England. A full deli counter of Come On England written out in pepperoni, and then like one pizza with ham that spells Kane 9 on the back of a jersey. It's a jersey shaped pizza. It
must look far better than it's described, but no, I can't. I'd save the cheese boards on for stuff like the Rainbow Cup.
And there we go, there it is. There's your Harry Kane pizza.
Oh wow, that looks absolutely manky.
I would eat it.
That looks disgusting.
I think it looks alright. I think
it's like, look at the bottom half is all it's all cheese down low.
Justice for Asda's pizzas. There are other views available on Asda's pizza counter. Right, let's get into our quick picks. Our GAA weekend ahead is okay. It's not a bumper weekend of GAA. Let's be straight up here. It is a weekend where, according to our predictions, things are pretty predictable. Will O'Callaghan, Tommy Rooney, good morning.
Morning, lads.
Let's have a look at what's first up here. I think we're going to the football first. Oh, sorry, the predictions table. Sorry. Sorry. How could I?
Let's get it right. Let's get it right.
It's a knockout championship.
Let's go from bottom to top. I tipped Laois last weekend, which was one of the worst decisions I've ever made. All three of you tipped Westmeath. At half time, I was listening to it on the radio. I was listening to the radio. I was like, "This is going to work out nicely for me." Laois are getting it done, and then they lost by 16 points.
Was there like 16 points?
So I got that one badly wrong.
And you didn't reflect Westmeath's dominance, by the way, in the overall picture in your power rankings on Monday as well, which is an ongoing gripe of mine. But
that's not true. But I've come back to Tommy Rooney's level. We're on 17 correct, 4 incorrect so far. If we put the graphic up for just one moment, I think Will is 1 ahead of us. He's on 18 and 3. And top of the table, Adrian Barry, 20 and 1. Those damn Galway hurlers letting you down, Adrian. That's the only error, the only foot you've put wrong so far this summer.
Isn't that outrageous? Like a game that is one of the shocks of the summer so far. But
especially if you didn't predict it.
I don't want to get too carried away on. It's early days in the championship just yet. There's a lot of quality in the field. And there's Tommy as well. So long road to go.
What we're going to do from next week on is we're going to have to bring in margins of victory. A, because we can't have Adrian winning this thing and we need to get more points on the table. And B, let's have a look at where we're predicting the scores to go this week, or the results to go this week. So we've got our Munster and Connacht fixtures up on screen at the moment. For any of the radio listeners, we've got Cork against Limerick, Cork are being tipped by all 4 of us. We've got Tip against Kerry. Kerry is being tipped by all 4 of us. We've got Leitrim against Mayo. Mayo being tipped by all 4 of us. I
struggle here.
Which you struggle here, Tommy. I was going to ask which one are you most nervous about, but it's pretty obvious. I think the potential for Limerick to do something out of those 3 underdogs is probably the greatest.
Yeah, genuinely think there could be something going on here. You know how I feel about Cork.
You hate them. You hate Cork.
I'd love to hate them again, but they're just not worth hating.
Oh, the ultimate insult.
That is very insulting. Why are you so harsh, Tommy, this morning at 8:25?
I suppose I like that Limerick team. Like what they're doing. They were unlucky last year against Tipperary. And I just don't buy Cork at the minute. You've been talking them up for weeks. Just don't buy it.
Okay, go on.
No, that's it. I just think something could happen here.
Why are you tipping them against Limerick? You've had a pretty good year so far.
Because I'm bottom of the table. I played a save for the first time in my life on the GAA quick picks.
Right.
Tommy's calls are outrageous. You can't actually trust that he believes he's just doing it to be contrarian and to try and get an edge over everybody else. But there's the point on is there's a serious case for Limerick here that, like, whatever about Cork's vulnerabilities, like obviously having run Tip close last year, that Conor Sweeney point that brought it level head on, they could have been in, was that to go into a Munster final after that?
Yeah.
Beat Tip in the league during the year, didn't they? So yeah, I think that, like, Limerick, actually a lot of the games that some of them are just quite clearly going to go one direction. I think of a lot of the games, I think that one is actually would have the, if you could call it a shock, a surprise for it.
Yeah, I agree. Will, any concern over your football picks so far?
Yeah, I think, again, Limerick and Tip is probably the one that we've looked at so far that has the capacity for a shock, really. I saw Limerick a couple of times when Offaly beat them in the league, and their semi-final loss against Derry when they played pretty well, but Derry then pulled away late on in that semi-final. Cork, I think, though, have been just operating at a higher level. You know, we're pretty decent in Division 2 this year. Beat Westmeath when they needed to dig in and put in a performance in that relegation playoff final. Showed that they got plenty of scores in the team too. So as much as Limerick should give them a good run, I'd be shocked if Cork do slip up this weekend. And look, it's a chance for Cork to try and get back into a Munster final and maybe right some of the wrongs that they would have felt about last year, like having knocked out Kerry and then to not go on and convert that into silverware. So that's the one I'd be surprised if there was a big result in it. I mean, for Tipperary, I don't think Lightning's going to strike twice in terms of winning Munster 2 years in a row. They've lost players from last season and were pretty disappointing in Division 3 South of the league, which would have looked tasty for promotion on the face of it when it was drawn into 2 different groups. And, you know, Tip now down into Division 4. You would imagine Kerry, having dismantled Clare a couple of weeks ago, should be advancing to the final. And from what we've seen from Mayo so far, you'd be a very brave person, and even if you're going to be as contrary as Tommy Rooney, to try and pick Leitrim to beat Mayo. So I think the football looks fairly straightforward, as bizarrely we get into the last 12 in the country this weekend, despite the fact that it feels like the football championship's only just after starting.
Are we into the last? We are, because there's no quarterfinals. Genie, Mac. Then, like, it does, yeah. And I guess it doesn't necessarily reflect overly well that these are all so predictable. Like, let's bring up the second slide of our football predictions. Draft number 1. I say draft number 1. So this is a full house for Donegal to beat Derry and a full house for Tyrone to beat Cavan. However, I got an email at 3 minutes past midnight last night where Tommy Rooney in the subject line was, "I think I'm going to change to Cavan." So there you have it, Tommy. You've jumped ship. You have upset the apple cart. Why have you bottled your Tyrone pick?
I don't know if I've bottled my Tyrone pick. I've been struggling with this game for the last 2 weeks. I just really expect a reaction from Cavan. Like, I'm about 20 yards from Cavan at the minute. I'm just on the border, and I know what they're like. They're proud people. They've been relegated 3 years now in a row. So I don't think that's going to affect them too badly. I know they're down in Division 4. But you look at what they did last year. You know, they were down against Monaghan. They were down and out. They come back and bet them. They got by against Antrim after a poor first half. They were down and out against County Down, and they come back and they bet them. And they had no chance against Donegal. There was no hope. Donegal were taking on Dublin, like. And Cavan beat them.
But it was an outlier, Tommy, a total outlier. Like you're
What's the outlier?
You're making the case that they've been did you say they've been relegated 3 years running?
3 years running in the league.
And you somehow use that as a point to make a case for them.
No, what I'm saying is that Mickey Graham is the king of championship shocks. That's what he is.
Yeah. They lost to Derry and Fermanagh in the league, Tommy.
Doesn't matter. It's the league.
Like, in fairness, I think Tommy's point is that they got relegated to Division 3 last year and they still managed to win the Ulster Championship. So why not get relegated again and go far to the Championship again?
Point.
It's designed.
Last point. At 11:59 last night, the Tyrone team was released.
Yeah.
Colin McShane is back in the matchday panel.
Yeah.
But there's no Conor McKenna.
Yeah, that's a big
Not
loss.
even on the panel.
Big
Not
loss.
even in the squad.
But Tyrone without McKenna should be able to beat Cavan. Like, if Tyrone have any designs on being Tyrone, on at least having a passable season, they should be able to beat half of that province, regardless of whether or not this is a transitional phase for Tyrone. Like, they did. I know their league ended badly, but they still managed to not get relegated or not be in the bottom half of a really tough division in Division 1, whereas Cavan got relegated into Division 4. And I know that there was a proximity between league and championship last year as well, but it was only some of the league. I think this year the league form is more important than ever because all of the league is right before the championship.
Same amount of games, though.
There was only 2 league games last year before.
What was this year? 3?
Well, 1, 2, 3, 4 in four, and then 5 if you're Offaly and Derry. So I don't know. I think that's a little bit more. I see your point, but I think it's a little bit more significant for Cavan this year. I also think if you look at the Tyrone Cavan game 2 years ago, we all expected Cavan to put up a real fight against Tyrone that day, and it just didn't materialise whatsoever. And Cavan had a good championship that year as well. Like, they got relegated and they beat Monaghan, didn't they, first day out in the Ulster Championship that year, and then there was that qualifier against Tyrone and they got slaughtered when we thought that was actually going to be a real contest. So I don't think the form line against Tyrone bodes well. I don't think the form line in their recent games bodes well. And I think that we are backing, or you're backing Cavan based on what they did last year. And that might have scratched an itch as well, Tommy.
Not necessarily. Look, it's not like what I was saying about Cork earlier. I've got nothing against the people of Tyrone. But
just to clarify.
It's okay. I don't think they're taking it personally.
I just think Dooher and Logan, they're only in the door. It's a tough time for a manager who hasn't, had a squad or been training with them full time. Mickey Graham, as I mentioned earlier on, is brilliant when it comes to championship football. Like, getting a team ready, getting a team right, upsetting the apple cart. I'm back in Cavan again.
Will, give us margins of victory here for Donegal and Tyrone.
The Donegal-Derry game might be reasonably tight. Like, Derry were so impressive in that Division 3 final a few weeks ago, albeit I think Offaly down tools in the second half of the game. But I think Donegal probably by 2 or 3 points, but I'd fancy Tyrone to beat Cavan by minimum of 5, to be honest. Like, I was talking to Peter Canavan last Friday week, and he reckons the transition in management team hasn't really affected Tyrone. He said the only concern in the 4 league games that he saw at that point was the defeat against Kerry. He said outside of that, Tyrone had played quite well. And to Tommy's point about the team that's been named, can you put stock in any team that's named on a Thursday midnight ahead of a weekend? Like, have we had a single team named this year that actually lined out the way it was named?
You can't add anyone to your matchday panel.
If McKenna's out of the squad, I would believe that. But I'd agree. McShane could start, for example.
Yeah, exactly. If he's fit enough to be in the squad, there's every chance he's in there. That would change your thinking, Tommy, if McShane starts.
No.
Surely.
It would.
No, not yet. Not at the minute. Sure, wow. but sure, you can't, lads. Whatever about training, you can't replicate championship football. Like,
I know, but it's not like he's some schlep coming in, Tommy. He's one of the best footballers in the country.
Yeah, but it doesn't change my thinking, because my thinking isn't based on the fact that McKenna is out. That didn't really change me. Like, it was a factor. But, like, I've been flip-flopping between Cavan and Tyrone all week. And then...
Tommy, what happened there? You were asleep 2 hours last night and you were dreaming about the game and you woke up. You know that thing where you wake up in the middle of the night, you're having a creative thought about something and you want to write it down, and you wake up the next morning. It's a Jerry Seinfeld sketch. You wake up the next morning and the thing makes no sense. That's obviously what happened to you. You woke up this morning and went, I really wish I hadn't done that, but I'm in too deep.
Cavan football makes no sense. Cavan football makes no sense.
Everything you're saying points to Tyrone winning.
They're the giants. They're the giants of Ulster football. They were beaten by Wicklow to be relegated to Division 4. They're reigning Ulster champions. Nothing about Cavan football makes sense.
No,
it's
true.
a thing in the tail this weekend.
I do.
Let's not talk about Wicklow, please.
I'm not saying to put money on it. I'm not saying to put money on it off the back of anything I'm saying. I'm just saying I believe there can be a sting in the tail.
I do like that whets the appetite nicely, actually, for Derry Donegal. Will's prediction that it could be 2 or 3 points. That's definitely the football game of the weekend. We'll see now if league does translate to championship, because Derry have been so impressive. Just one quick look at the one hurling fixture this weekend. It is Antrim against Laois. We are all backing Antrim in this. Will, I might throw this to you. You're backing against Laois 2 weeks in a row, obviously in different codes. Why is this going to go Antrim's way?
Well, look, you'd hope that the Laois hurlers score more than 2 points in the second half, like we saw from the footballers last week. But look, again, form indicates that Antrim are going to win. Antrim won the league meeting between the sides up in Corrigan Park. Antrim lost out to Dublin, but we saw that Dublin played reasonably well against Galway, even though Galway were horrific last weekend. Like, there's nothing to indicate from Laois. They've lost all of their games so far this year. They're still at this stage on the fly trying to work out vital positions on their team, including their half-back line, midfield and half-forward line. It would take a huge effort at Parnell Park if Laois are going to stay up. They're probably going to face off 2 relegation playoffs where they're going to be the underdogs. They've got the league relegation playoff bizarrely coming up on All-Ireland semi-final weekend against Westmeath. They'll be worried by Westmeath's form in the Joe McDonagh Cup. I would be surprised if Laois aren't operating at Division 2 hurling and in the Joe McDonagh for next season. And unless Antrim hurl within themselves, I think the Saffrons beat Laois this weekend. I think this is a pretty easy call. It would be a big upset now if Laois were to win based on the form of both teams.
Yeah, and I don't think I can be caught on the table, as Will rightly pointed out last week. Come on, Will. Again next week, so look forward to retaining my crown again for at least one more week.
And I'm looking forward to Offaly beating Westmeath's under-20s and ending Adrian's run in that competition next
Not a chance,
Thursday night as well.
Go on, Tommy, you had something, pearls of wisdom there. What were you?
No, I was going to say something. I'm not going to say it.
Go on, say it.
Meath for Sam.
Well, I just haven't heard Adrian give too strong a take on Anthony. He's just kind of picking.
Nah, that's too strong.
Just rolling with the favourites.
See, Tommy, the mistake that you make is you draw up these predictions. You should have stuck with your initial prediction. You draw up these predictions based on the fact that you think everybody else is going to go the other way. So you come up with this outrageous. And the other point about your picks is this, right? That you, out of the 10 crazy picks that you make, one of them comes off, and at that point you're like, I am the guru of this. I mean, look, I got all that other stuff wrong, but I mean, I managed to pick somehow Cavan to pick Tyrone, which is not happening.
All right, let's have a listen to what Paddy and Andy think.
Right. Good man. People who talk some sense. Thanks, lads. We'll catch up with you again next week for more of that good stuff. It's 8:37. It's Friday morning. Lots of comments coming into us. We'll bring you some of those your way in just a little bit. Colm Buig is going to join us next to talk Wimbledon and specifically the men's final from 2001 in a special classic game club that's coming your way shortly. First of all, take a look at this, as Tommy said. Paddy Andrews, Andy Moran, episode 9 of the brilliant The Football Pod, and they're expecting a shock in Ulster this weekend.
Where both Cavan and Derry have a huge chance, I think, right? So if we look at Antrim last week with Enda McGinley, very new to the scene in terms of management, and it does take a while. If you look at Wexford, Shane Roach, very new to the scene, it takes a while. Both did exceptionally well. But if you look at Derry with Rory Gallagher, and you look at Cavan with Mickey Graham, it definitely gives them a chance. Like Rory Gallagher isn't going in there with, he knows Donegal inside out. Like if there's going to be a shock in this championship, lads, it has to be it. Like Rory Gallagher knows them inside out. Your absolute leader and superstar is more than likely out. Your team is in the form of their life, like that they haven't got. The Derry people believe in them, and Donegal are 100% worried about this game. Like the only team you didn't want out of the underdogs in Ulster is Derry. So if there's going to be a shock, this is going to be it. Do I think they have enough? I think Donegal will have too much scoring power for them. I genuinely think that's going to be the only issue. I think Derry will score plenty, but I just think Donegal will score too much. I genuinely think that's going to be the problem.
I think on it, you're right. The Rory Gallagher influence, he knows that Donegal team, from working with Jim McGuinness, he'll have a plan for Ryan McHugh. He'll have a plan for Paddy McBrearty. We've seen Donegal have very kind of set patterns of play up front. It can at times be predictable. Now it's a different thing knowing what's going to happen and being able to stop it. But Rory Gallagher's going to have plans for that. Chrissy McKaig is going to be manning that full back line, and he's trying to get his hands on Paddy McBrearty. If Murphy's missing, and remember the creaks in the Donegal defence that was highlighted even by Down, who've had a pretty poor season. Caleb Mooney, his speed, his athleticism. You're looking at Conor Glass coming through for Derry. they will have a really, really set game plan. They've got huge confidence on how they've performed over the spring. You're right. We're hoping for some sort of upset, something to ignite this championship. I think that the most likely place is going to be this weekend if Cavan or Derry can get over. In saying that, I agree with Andy. I think the quality that Donegal and Tyrone have, if they bring their best stuff, should probably just have too much. But I think if you're going to see an upset, that's where it's going to be at the weekend.
All right, at 8:40 on this Friday morning, it is time for the Classic Game Club. We are going back to 2001. 20 years ago today, one of the greatest finals in Wimbledon history took place. It was Pat Rafter versus Goran Ivanisevic. The same day, Colin Buick, that The Office debuted on BBC. Is this day in 2001 the greatest day in the history of humankind?
It might just be, Eoin, Sheahan. It might. Soundtrack by Craig David that summer, I think. It was a great time to be alive. And Goran Ivanisevic grabbed that spirit and ran with it that day in centre court, that Monday, that People's Monday against Pat Rafter. So many great quotes attributed with it, but one that has never left my mind, like Junior Cert Shakespeare, is I wouldn't mind putting my racket away if God let me win today, which apparently was Goran Ivanisevic's first thing he said when he woke up that Monday morning after losing the final 3 times at Wimbledon in the 1990s. But the atmosphere, lads, as you both know, for this match is just 20 years later, still spine-tingling.
You've rewatched the full thing this week. It's about 17 hours long. Is it the greatest tennis match of all time?
In terms of ability and quality, absolutely not. Way down the list. In terms of tension and atmosphere and pressure and what was on the line, and it was last chance saloon. These guys barely played tennis ever again afterwards. By far number one. Easily the best ever. 7 years later, between Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, that was the best quality tennis match ever. That was also Wimbledon final. And the atmosphere is brilliant, but this is untouchable. And the beauty was, of course, it was a day late because of the rain over the weekends. This is pre-roof days. And the tickets were open to the public. First come, first served. And as you look back in the video, you see a sea of yellow for Australia and red and white for Croatia. And it's, as Adrian Barry was saying to me last night when he was watching it back, it was like a football match. And even more specifically, every point in the last 2 games was cheered like in a penalty shootout. It was unbelievable.
Adrian, you love this.
It was class. My memory of anything is so bad, but People's Monday, definitely I remember that, and I remember thinking about, at the time, the opportunity that existed, and everybody was talking about the fact that, like Colm was saying, it was first come, first served, and there was like every sort of rag and bone merchant was allowed in, and I think that fed into the atmosphere, Colm. It was like, it was an incredible day, but I thought that at that time, my recollection of it was that there was a possibility that like in terms of, we're talking obviously about the context and the background to it, that People's Monday could become a thing, that actually like Wimbledon could move away from this slight snooty reputation that it had of the strawberries and cream and all these very refined people, that there was an opportunity to make it a bit more of the people's game, to harness some of People's Monday, even outside of the fact that obviously it got pushed that way because of rain, and then obviously they built a roof, and so that comes out of the equation, but that there was philosophically some way to say, geez, that was cool, could we do more of that? But obviously that didn't happen.
No, and I'm glad it didn't either. There was brief discussion afterwards, just because it was such a raging success, accidentally so. But like a lot of things, when it's rare, it's beautiful. And I wouldn't touch this, and it's in the annals of history, and it's actually in the Wimbledon Museum. If you go there, Goran Ivanisevic's gear from that day is hung up. And if the final means a lot to you, and if you see that kit hung up and the trophy there next to him and pictures from that final, it just brings back all these sorts of memories. But it's just an incredible story. If you set down to write this story, you wouldn't do much better than what actually happened in reality, which is this guy Ivanisevic, 125 in the world, only played at Wimbledon because of a wildcard entry. He's the first and only wildcard to win Wimbledon. The first unseeded player to win it since, I think, Boris Becker in 1985, up to that point. He had lost in the first round of Queens, and that was the day that they gave out the wildcard entries. And he's since said, actually in an interview only last year, he said, they mustn't have watched me that day because I was absolutely terrible. But thankfully they gave me a wildcard because they had nobody else to give it to. And that was because, of course, he got the 3 previous finals. So he lost to Andre Agassi in 1992, which is Agassi's one and only Wimbledon title. That was a 5-setter. Then 2 years later, Ivanisevic, when he was high as number 2 in the world rankings, so this is a serious operator. It wasn't like a complete wild card for his whole career. He got to at least the quarterfinal of every Grand Slam in the 90s. And in 94, when he was world number 2, he lost to Pete Sampras pretty comfortably, actually, in straight sets, 6-love in the third. But then 4 years later, 1998, again, lost to Pete Sampras, as most people did in the 90s, but very cruelly in 5 sets. And it was his third final defeat. And the real kind of sadness about that defeat was, you can actually see it. It's on YouTube. Goran with his long hair and a beard, very different looking to us. He was in 2001, and he has the towel over his head and he's crying inconsolably on court. It's even worse off court. And he basically barely plays for the next 3 years through a combination of the shoulder injury that would eventually end his career and lack of motivation because he was so heartbroken from losing that third Wimbledon final, especially. And everything that he did in his tennis career after 98 was in reference or comparison to the fact that, yeah, I played well today, but I'm never going to win Wimbledon. So what's the point? And then 2001 hits.
Pat Cash talks eloquently about that, the aftermath of that third loss, and the commentary actually of that 2001 final. Just looking at the terms of the path and you know, the final itself in some ways, like it struck me looking at the last 20 minutes of it last night and going through his path to the final, that it was a handy All-Ireland. Like he had no. He had Carlos Moya, he had a too young Andy Roddick, he had Greg Ruzetsky, who everybody was beating, Marat Safin, who won 2 Grand Slams, but also kind of a weird career in that, like, it wasn't somebody who was competing regularly. Wimbledon definitely wasn't his forte. Tennis's great failure in Tim Henman, and even in Rafter, how often do you get to play somebody who's world number 10, who wasn't like in the top 5 in the world in a final like that? I put it to you, Colin Bowie, it was Clare 2013 or it was Kerry 2014.
Hey now.
Whoa. I mean, Adrian, I'm as outraged as you now as Martin Lipton was earlier, because that is an outrageous statement.
Handy All-Ireland.
Carlos Moya won the French Open. He was a Grand Slam winner before that meeting. That was in the second round. In the third round, he played Andy Roddick, one of the hottest prospects.
Too young Andy Roddick.
Won the US Open very shortly afterwards. Greg Ruzetsky, the much maligned Ruzetsky, but he had reached the US Open final. Another Grand Slam finalist. Marat Safin, as you say, a 2-time Grand Slam champion. And Tim Henman was a 4-time Wimbledon semi-finalist who was only ever beaten by Pete
a loser,
Sampras
exactly.
So for a guy who barely had picked up a racket for 3 years,
you have to accept it was. I'm not saying that they weren't good tennis players, but like the path to the final and the final itself.
I'm not saying they weren't good tennis players.
It wasn't laden.
Adrian Barry.
It wasn't laden with players that people are going to talk about in 30 years.
Who did you want? Did you want like Sampras, Agassi, Djokovic, Nadal, Federer?
Yeah, exactly. You got to beat. It's not Ireland unless you beat Dublin, like Kerry now for 2014.
Well, he beat in Pat Rafter. He beat the man who reached the previous year's Wimbledon final and lost to Sampras. And Rafter had beaten Andre Agassi in the semi-final of this year. So got revenge actually after losing to Agassi in the semi-final of the Australian Open earlier that year, which Ivanisevic had to qualify for and lost in qualifying. So again, any player of note at all with any form or any slam success or promising talent, everybody was favoured against Ivanisevic. And up till and including the semi-final, nobody was really talking about it. The semi-final was Henman, Rafter, Agassi, and that Ivanisevic guy who used to get the finals. Everyone wrote him off. And rightly so. And look what he did. And he loved that. I mean, you couldn't get a better beating Dublin story than Goran Ivanisevic winning Wimbledon, because his biggest threat, his biggest opposition, Adrian, was himself. He was his own Dublin.
Agree. Yeah.
What is the defining moment in this match?
Well, there's so many. I mean, first of all, he has 4 championship points. So, and in the first 2, he double faults, which is just impossible to watch. But really the defining moment before that was at 6-7 in the 5th and final set. Ivanisevic was love 30 down on his own serve. And then he was at deuce. So twice he was only 2 points from defeat. Pat Rafter should have won this. But Ivanisevic holds, and then at 7-all, Rafter serves, and Ivanisevic breaks him quite convincingly, actually, with a passing forehand as Rafters approaching the net. And just before that point, the commentator said that it's 15:40 as Rafters about to serve 2 virtual match points for Ivanisevic. Such was the strength of his serve game in the 90s and very early 90s. Ivanisevic was pretty much untouchable and unparalleled at a time when aces were prevalent in the game. Once Ivanisevic got that passing shot against Rafter to go 8-7 up, that really was the game. That was a turning point. But then the emotion and the roller coaster ride of that game when Ivanisevic served it out itself is Netflix documentary worthy.
That 8-7 moment for me, I thought that was a huge, like, it's less sexy than the stuff that happens afterwards and probably gets talked about less, but that the return of serve to go whatever it was 8-7 up, and because of what followed, as I said, like that, the double fall stuff, it feels maybe less sexy, but like Rafter was doing what Rafter did with that sort of serve and volley stuff and comes to the net and he just takes a slight jink to the left on his left foot, which is like a like less than the width of a tennis racket to his left hand side, and it's enough for Ivanisevic to open up and pass it by him, and that just was such a, like, he disappears. There's so many moments in that match, I think, that are incredible, but I do think that might be the one.
Do you see that passing shot when, as you say, Rafter slightly wrong foots himself and Ivanisevic passes him? The crowd just anticipate that. They're almost cheering just as Ivanisevic connects with the ball at all before they even know its destination, because it's the weight of pressure and it's being that he's actually going to break him here. And then when they take a break and sit down before the final game, the match, Ivanisevic, just like he did after losing in 98, puts the towel over his head again. So he's trying to, in some way, calm himself and be composed. And then the last game is anything but that. It's chaos from the start. I mean, he hits the second serve and he has an easy net volley. Ivanisevic just Rafter returns and the crowd is cheering already, and he puts it long. He's just so tight, and he alludes to that in the on-court post-match interview with Sue Barker. He said, "Oh my God, I was so tight, and thank God Rafter missed, because I was never going to win that otherwise." And it goes on from there. Like, there's just so many amazing points up until the first championship point. But the best part is that between every point, the crowd are just going wild. I mean, how these guys didn't break down in tears, I don't know. Because I remember watching it crying at the time. I remember, like, I couldn't handle this. I had no affiliation with these guys at all. I mean, the BBC did an interview with Ivanisevic in the first week, and the team was Goran's split personality. So he had 3 different personalities, because he was going to explode at any moment, this guy in the court. And actually in the fourth set he did. He got punished for a foot fault, and he kicked the net in anger and shouted at the umpire. And that was kind of standard fare for Ivanisevic. And he did this interview the first week, and it was a split screen, the 3 different sides of Ivanisevic, and I was just immediately endeared to this guy. And from then on, I supported him, and to the point where a week and a half later, I was inconsolable watching the final set because I thought he might lose again. I mean, that's the power of it. And then you take that feeling from a person who didn't really know him at all to half of that crowd in centre court who were Croats who were obsessed with him and idolised them. And if you look around to the crowd, it's just people not being able to speak. Instead, they just shout. It's unbelievable.
Give us your wrap-up then on the aftermath, the legacy of this match on both men.
Well, I think what kind of adds to it is almost like mythical now, 20 years on, is that basically neither man really played after that again. Rafter played the Davis Cup at the end of that year, 2001, for Australia, and won it. Then he set out all of 2002 because of injuries, and in January 2003 he announced his retirement. So that was his last match. So the great sadness of Rafter, although he won 2 US Opens in a row, he also lost 2 Wimbledon finals in a row. And for Ivanisevic, that troubling shoulder problem that kept him out for 3 years before that he actually had to get medical time out in the 3rd set of the final. He got surgery pretty much straight after that match, actually announced his retirement in 2002, but came back out of it to play one more time in Wimbledon in 2004. Quite impressively got to the 3rd round, where he lost to the 2002 champion Leighton Hewitt. And after that match on court, Ivanisevic ripped off his shirt, which he had a habit of doing. He loved doing that, win or lose. And he put on a Croatia jersey because that night Croatia were playing England in Euro 2004. So he wanted to rile the crowd. And I guess that's the greatest way to end a career that I can think of. So the legacy is that they basically both went straight into retirement, and everybody was able to sit on that match and enjoy it as anyone can, and go on YouTube and watch it back, because in terms of scintillating sporting moments, for me, it's untouched, it's unparalleled. It's the best atmosphere of any match I've ever seen. And I wasn't at it. I was just watching it through TV, so I can only imagine what it was like to be there. And if you're on YouTube and you look at the comments, it's littered with people saying, I was there, I will never forget that.
Yeah, it is a pretty special moment. Colin, thanks so much for bringing this to the table this week. The full thing is available on YouTube. If you don't have, whatever it is, 4 hours to watch it, the last 20, 30 minutes, we would highly advise. Colin, good stuff.
That's Colin Buig with reflections on 2001, obviously ahead of a monster weekend at Wimbledon, and do head along and check that out. By the way, news just coming into us that Mayo GAA are currently, it's a statement from Mayo GAA, they're currently working with the HSE on a number of COVID-19 related queries amongst members of the county senior football panel. Mayo GAA, following HSE guidelines, and our senior team are continuing their preparation for Sunday's Connacht Championship game against Leitrim. So it's vague enough, but obviously there are some issues at stake, and what impact that'll have in the game against Leitrim at the weekend, we shall see down the track. But that statement's come into us in the last little while, and if there's any more developments on that, keep an eye on OTB social channels over the course of the day. It is 8:55. You're watching OTB AM. We've a live crappy quiz coming your way in a little while. We've loads of comments coming into us as well, including one on the tennis there from Will saying Adrian just got schooled by the tennis Jesus, which goes up there for, I think, comment of the morning. Right, time to turn to rugby. Delighted to say former Ireland international Fiona Hayes is on the line. Morning, Fiona.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Flying it, thanks. Looking forward to the weekend of rugby. It's all been a bit weird, particularly in terms of the lines, and we'll get your thoughts on that in a moment. But exciting enough, and it was kind of the main reason we wanted to chat to you this morning, looking at the Ireland team yesterday to take on the USA at the weekend. It's an exciting squad.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've a prospect of 7 new caps for this game. You know, you've 4 on the bench, ready and able, willing to come on. So I'm very, very excited. I think it's good to change things up. And the great thing about it is kind of these players have been picked on form with the provinces as well. So they're going to be champing at the bit to go as well. It's really good for Irish rugby to see these lads ready to go. Who
are the 2 or 3, or name as many as you want, players when you look at it that you think that you're watching out for this weekend, that you think have the best opportunity of having long careers with Ireland?
I suppose we saw Coombs last week. He didn't get a great showing, but he's started now this week. And same with Craig Casey, obviously being a Munster woman, I have to name them. But for me, looking at Balakoon on the wing, I know he's had a torrid time with injury, but he's been back playing with Ulster in the Rainbow Cup, and he is just absolutely lightning quick. So I'm really excited to have a look at him. And I suppose I've been watching Paul Boyle with Connacht, who's sitting on the bench as well, and he's having an outstanding season at 8. So I'm really excited to see him get on the pitch and to see what he can bring.
How up for grabs are positions in the back three at the moment, Fiona? It seems that Hugo Keenan is safe as houses at 15, but it does seem that both wings consistently are up for grabs.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we've seen players kind of dip in and out of form, and I know kind of Keith Earls, I suppose, is coming towards the end of his career. So there are places, Jacob Stockdale, a lot of people have talked about him being in form, out of form, but there's definitely places to be there. And I think what we're looking for, I suppose, as that people are the players have, is some players are exciting, attacking, and might be a little bit off defensively. So I think they're trying to nail down that 2 players that can absolutely bring defence, big defensive hits, but also be lightning quick. And I suppose we're looking at Keenan. I mean, you've talked about him. He kind of came out of the blue in the last couple of years. I mean, we hadn't heard much about him, and he's just got in there and nailed down that place. I mean, he was a bolter for the Lions. It just goes to show you what kind of season he had.
Do they need to nail down that back 3 at any point soon, or can they go into the World Cup in a couple of years and just pick that back 3 on form? Like, is it a position where you can get away without having a solid partnership for months and months and months in advance?
I think so. I think obviously you'd want to nail down your full back, and we have that. And I suppose you would like to get that three working in tandem together, especially defensively, because whatever systems they're using, it can be hard kind of to cover people in the backfield, etc. So they would want to nail it down. But I suppose rather than that 9-10, you really have to nail down front row as well. I think you would get away with it, and with lads coming in now, and we have these, and you have the November internationals hopefully as well, and people will be getting their chance to shine. And I think it's good to have that kind of competition there and people coming in and out, and it definitely should be picked on form, because players can come in and out of form. We looked at Conway, he was outstanding for a couple of seasons. His form has dipped a slight bit. I'm excited to see him starting again. So it's such the way that people can get injured and come in and out of form. So it is one of the places in the pitch that you probably will get away with trying things out a little bit more.
I'm sure Simon Zebo has listened to the 2E saying that Hugo Keenan is a nailed on 15. Who you, because he's going to come back in, right, once the season begins. So who are you picking if the two of them are available?
I'll be killed. I'm living down here in Munster. I want to go outside the door today. You know what? Keenan has been absolute form of his life. Now I've watched Zebo over in Racing as well, and he hasn't really consistently played it in the last couple of games. He's been on the bench. He brings that X factor. He's just so exciting to watch. You're in the crowd. You love watching him. So I suppose as a coach, you're looking at it. Do you want that X factor, or do you want that person who's solid as a rock? And Zebo can be quite solid as well, but I'd be looking at Keenan, and I'd say Zebo will come in and give him a run for his money.
Yeah, definitely well stocked in that position. There's been so much made about the pack for the game at the weekend, Fiona, that they're this great. Every one of them is a great ball carrier. Is there any aspect of that that's not a good thing in terms of needing the grunt players to do the grunt?
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, it's not, you have, Baird is an exceptional kind of ball carrier. I'm excited at looking at Tom O'Toole carrying ball as well, but you definitely need that grunt. And I've seen it down here with Wycherley, with Munster, and he slows the ball down. He's watching it, he gets in people's faces. I'm sure the lads will do that, but I think you definitely need that. And with Coombs and Doris, I suppose they're exceptional on the ball, and they will learn that. Timony, I suppose, is someone who will get in the face of people. So they have those players there, but I do think when Wycherley comes on, he'll bring that grunt, he'll bring that doggedness to the breakdown, and that's what I love watching as well. As much as I love seeing lads carrying ball, it's that kind of doggedness in your face at the ruck time. I think that can disturb ball, and USA is the perfect team to try it against.
Talk to us a bit more about the front row particularly, and maybe hooker particularly, because it's a position obviously that Ireland are crying out for somebody to put their hand up, and like Eoin was mentioning about full back, certainly in that position you want somebody who's playing regularly and has that understanding and understands the calls inside out, and probably Ronan Kelleher didn't put his hand up last weekend in a way that you might have hoped.
Yeah, I suppose there was a lot of pressure on him as well, because he was away. We all knew he was called up to the Lions camp to train, and he was going into that game, and a lot of people were speaking highly, which they should be speaking highly of him. But sometimes it's not just the throw. I watched those missed lineouts back, and a lot of it had to do with the timing of the jump, or there was a lot of movement at times that wasn't needed, which is the calls that were made. So I think automatically we blame the hooker, and that's not it. I mean, Kelleher, we've talked about ball carriers, is exceptional around the park, and he brings a lot of grunt as well, but I think he just needs a bit of time, and they need to work together on that set piece. He's definitely in the forefront, in my opinion, as the hooker to take that spot. And it is up in the air at the minute. Last week a lot of people said he missed throws, but when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, and I'm sure they did up at camp and reviewed the footage, you would see that it wasn't him a lot of the time. It was timing and calls, and that will come to them the more they play together.
Yeah, and he just has to, in a position like that as well, to get that understanding and to get the experience under your belt, he just has to keep giving him caps, doesn't he? He has to. Do you feel he has to back either him or Hurling or whoever it might be, and just give them game time and just leave them at it?
That's what I agree with that 100%. When you're in key positions like that, there's no point constantly changing it up. Obviously, you give lads a shot when it comes to games like this, but you need to stick with players. They need to be playing together. It's different playing with Leinster, Munster. When you step up to Ireland, you're playing completely different level. Test level is higher than that again. And these lads just need to be in there, need to be playing consistently. And it's also a mental game. So if your coach is backing you, and you mightn't have, as you said, people said Kelleher didn't play great last week at times. he knows his coach is backing him. He's back in there again. So it's a mental game, and he will constantly be trying to bring it. And I'm sure Paul O'Connell and whoever else is there, Fogarty as well, would have chatted with him, and they would have tweaked a few things that went wrong last week as well. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to watch over the next one. One last one on the Ireland bit for me, the Craig Casey selection. He's a couple of caps, obviously. It's his first start, and there's Caelan Blade on the bench as well, who's like so inexperienced but is still 27, but looks like a lightning player. Who's the best of the rest, Fiona? Again, if you were picking a team tomorrow behind Murray, who's the best of the rest?
Obviously, I'm going to say Craig Casey. I'm a massive fan. I'm in awe of what he brings, and for the size of him, you know, he's just electric to watch. I've been up at Tone Park, I've seen him play, just watching him get around the place, you know, and he just brings that doggedness, and he gets that ball moving, and he gets the pack moving nice and quick. So, you know, obviously there's a few others. Luke McGrath has been playing outstanding as well, I think, for Leinster. James St. Gilson Park, but for me, I think you need to look. You have Conor Murray. You need to start looking at youth now. And Caelan Blade has had a great season for Connacht, but I think, you know, he's been backed, Casey, and it looks like the lads are backing him. Obviously, he only got a couple of minutes last week, but that was technically, I suppose, issues because of substitutions and that, and you understand that. So he's getting his chance now to shine this week, and I think he's got the personality to have an absolutely belter of a game.
Yeah, he's such a huge prospect, and I think everybody in the country is right behind him. On the lines then, Fiona, it's, as I said at the top, it's been sort of just such a weird build-up, and it'll be weird again this weekend because obviously it's been a change of opponents with the Bulls stepping out because of the COVID situation and the Shark come in. What's your general thoughts or sense of the tour and the fact that it's gone ahead?
Yeah, I think, you know, they've gone over there. They knew everything that was probably going to happen when they're over there, so they've taken precautions for everything. A lot of people don't want the tour to go ahead, but look, it is what it is. They're over there. You know, unless there's an absolute massive outbreak, I think lads should be in there playing rugby. I watched them. There was such disruption in the game against in the Sharks, and there was massive disruption. They had a 7-1 forward back split on the bench. It was crazy to think how are they going to go into this game fully focused. But watching the style of rugby and the players that shone in that game was just amazing to watch. It was like a 7-54 scoreline, and it's probably one of the better warm-up lines games I've seen over the last couple of tours, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on that. Ireland, what's success for Ireland, by the way? What do you think? We're talking about margin, I presume.
Yeah, obviously you're looking at getting everyone, you know, the lads capped, getting that bench on nice and early. Obviously a win is going to be, you know, that you still have to look at World Rugby in the standings, and you always have to go into games with wanting to win. But I think success will be, you know, a good outing. People have played well together. We get Carberry up and running again, and a few other players start clicking together. I think as a coach, that's what you want to see, and this is your chance to get the lads out and let them shine.
Enjoyed that, Fiona. Thanks a million.
Will do. Thanks, lads.
Good
Bye.
luck. Thanks a lot, Fiona Hayes on the line there. Just to remind you as well that we're broadcasting all 9 matches from the British and Irish Lions Tour of South Africa and off the ball. We brought you Wednesday's warm-up game against the Sharks. Tomorrow they're going to be facing them again, of course, and we'll be live, full game live on Off the Ball with Neil, and our Lions coverage is brought to you in association with Vodafone, who are the lead partner of the British and Irish Lions. A couple of comments coming into us this morning. Federer versus Safin in the semi-finals. Australia 2005 was a much better match, says Michael Walker there. Hopefully Tyrone will be poor on Saturday and the Breffni boys can edge it, says Cavan lad there. 08 Federer and Nadal always wins, says Tomas Gray there, and good morning to you. And plenty more comments coming in. Some of them are not all that readable on, as you might imagine. Stuff that comes in on YouTube. OTB Sports Radio over the course of the day, by the way, a reminder on that from 11 this morning. It's the close to the last live Euro show, and Eamon Dunphy, who says he's going to get an England shirt with Boris number 1 on the back if England managed to get it done on Sunday night, is going to be the guest of Sheahan and Enda there. That's live from 11. Some OTB Gold from 1 o'clock. Ronnie Delaney there. Live Dadcast from 3 o'clock. I mean, I don't know if that's live, but I'm pretty sure it's not. 4 o'clock, Mark Quigley Shelburne and other clubs as well. League of Ireland legend is the guest of Team 33, and then Catherine Switzer will be the guest of OTB Gold from 6, live off the ball from 7, and then Team 33 live again from 9 o'clock tonight. That's a flavour of what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio over the course of the morning, bringing you Brian O'Driscoll on the lines before 10 this morning. Back after these live crappy quiz.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast? If not, here's some of what you've missed over the last week.
He got on the flight and he wasn't sure. He thought it might be dead.
It's not like he did what I did at Dalymount Park, you know what I mean, and rolled one into his own net.
I want this team to be a team that the Irish public are really proud of. I won't accept that we can't play from the back or we can't pass the ball.
For the best Euro 2020 coverage, subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast wherever you get your podcasts and download the OTB Sports app.
First up, a Go Loud original from News Talk.
Get all the news you need to start your day with First Up, the podcast that brings you stories, analysis and interviews with the top newsmakers. First Up, available each weekday morning from 7 a.m. on Go Loud.
Subscribe to this podcast for free on the Go Loud app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
I wouldn't do it, Nathan. Now, I'm only talking about my own opinion. See, the reason he put him back, took him off, was because they were a goal up, and I think he wanted to play the game out. Right? Well, the best way to do that, Nathan, is to have the ball. And there's nobody better at having the ball than Grealish, because he beats players, he gets free kicks. He can slow the game down and do it from that way. And there's nothing wrong with scoring another goal when you're in that position. That's tactics, and I wouldn't agree with that at all. Just because you put a defensive player on, and I think you put a full-back on, that doesn't help you. In my opinion, is to defend, Nathan. Get the ball, play with the ball, keep the ball up the other end of the field, and there's nobody better at doing that than Grealish. So, but that's a tactical move as I see it, but I wouldn't agree with it. That's for sure. Who in the squad would you say is the schemer? They used to call them screamers in my day. There's nobody, Nathan, that can really do it. They don't have a Jorginho or a Verratti in the squad, and that's the only. It's sort of weakness. There's no doubt. I mean, if you could put Verratti and Jorginho, in my opinion, in the England team, they'd be sensational in that position with the players they have around them. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Rice is a very good player. Phillips is a good player, but they're not capable of doing what Jorginho can do and Verratti can do. And sometimes the game is won in the middle of the field, but there again with Italy, you see, Italy don't have strikers like Harry Kane and Sterling. They're a bit short up front. That's why it's a fascinating game. They might have more possession of the ball, Italy, but England's still winning,
And that may actually just be the game plan, is let Italy have the ball and use that counter-attack with Saka and Sterling and Kane.
But you wouldn't do that.
You
can't do that. You can't let them do it and then think, well, they don't have so much up front. That's when they surprise you.
Right.
No, your best bet is don't give them that chance. In other words, dominate the middle of the field. Try and dominate the middle of the field, because everything comes from there eventually, So they wouldn't be in a position where they can say, okay, we let them have it, and they're not going to score. That'd be dangerous. That'd be really dangerous.
All right, it is OTB AM. It's 12 minutes past 9. We've lots of good stuff coming your way over the next little while. The quiz statement from last week.
We'll get to that in a while. It's a big reaction to your argument with Martin Lipton earlier on about Harry Kane and his
Where do you stand on your own?
I mean, Harry Kane is notorious for drawing fouls.
It is a euphemism for diving.
There is an element of skullduggery about it.
You're more euphemisms. It's dive. It's the point being that you can take contact. It's a bit like the Sterling penalty, which I didn't want to open that kind of worms, but it's a bit like the Sterling penalty. It seems like there was a little bit of contact, and he also,
I do think
there's
a slight difference between what Harry Kane does and what Raheem Sterling did to earn the penalty. There is an element of Harry Kane putting him deliberately in harm's way in order for contact to fall him. and he is looking to be felled, as it were. Raheem Sterling just fell over himself deliberately and wasn't even looking for any. Of course, ideally he would look for the contact, but regardless of what was going to happen, he was going to go over. As soon as Harry Kane feels the contact, he then goes over and he puts himself into a position quite often with his body as a centre forward to ensure that he does receive that contact. That for me is not diving.
But you're just talking about different levels of being a better actor then.
Yeah,
like
it's
the
not,
point
it's
of
not a dive.
Yeah, but the point that I was making earlier on, that Ray Parlour on TalkSport saying Italy are a crowd of divers and Harry Kane's a great man to win a free. Yeah. It's like, it's the same thing. It's just one's a better actor than the other.
Diving knows no borders in modern football, and
divers sans frontières.
Exactly. That should be the new podcast that you and Martin Lipton team up to deliver to the world, because I would listen to that on a weekly basis at least. Yeah, like this is just where it is.
Why can't we call him a diver? Why is it not just fair enough to say, like, what I'm saying is specifically, if Harry Kane was from another country, Ray Parlour this morning and everybody else will be saying he's a diver.
Yes, they would. They would certainly be saying that, because they would like to try and point at the person from the other country and say that they're cheats.
Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe if we I do think it's an argument about semantics, but you think what technically is a dive or not. Like, in fairness, what he does sometimes is that if there's a slight touch, he goes over, and for me, I guess that is a dive. But I do think there is truth in what Martin was saying earlier on, in that some of them are legitimate fouls. He does exaggerate the falling.
Yeah.
So that is a dive. So can you both be right? Is that a possible thing?
I think my view on it would be that, like I was saying to him, technically they are fouls. He could still stay on his feet. I think both of those things can coexist.
Yeah.
And he's right to point out that the referee is never going to give the free, as we've seen in GAA over the last couple of weeks. You're not going to get the free if you keep going. You got to go down. I get that. I'm just saying that he could definitely stay on his feet, and if he was from another country, everybody would be saying he's a big cheater.
Not everybody, but certainly Ray Parlour might be saying that this morning on his breakfast show. That's kind of the tone that's always been out there about other countries. But I think there's been a kind of almost a sense of justice in the eyes of English people after what happened to Raheem Sterling the other day, that they feel that they've been screwed over on so many occasions in the past, and they now feel that they finally got their justice and that karma exists, which I think is a nonsense argument. But it's certainly the thing that they're feeling this week. And like, I mean, if I don't know, if Ireland were playing France tomorrow and they got a soft penalty, we would be the first people to say, "Oh, justice for Henry." So that's how these things work. But
for Henry. That's a phrase that's a first on Irish media.
We've got the fortune of being a little bit removed from it and looking at it in a colder way than a lot of English people will, because that's just how sports fandom works. You can't really look at things overly coldly if you're unbelievably invested in it, and a lot of English people are not looking at it with that removed. They're looking at it in the context of all the history, all the pain, most importantly, that they've experienced in the past, and they're like, okay, so what are we getting from that pain? It's like, eventually the gods will smile on us and
more
we'll get
pain.
something like that. That's what it tended to have been.
I want to thank whoever's on Off the Ball social media in the last this morning, who've just hooked me into another tweet with Martin Lipton quoting me to say, why can't we call him a diver? Good morning to you, Martin. I really enjoyed our conversation earlier on. It was good. He's a brilliant contributor, and I think somebody pointed out on YouTube that he really encapsulates and communicates a nuanced point about English football that you don't often hear in the English media.
It's true, and I do think, in fairness, I think the vast majority of journalists who cover England at the moment do have that remove, where of course they'll probably be itching to leap out of their press box seat if England go 1-0 up on Sunday, but they will still have the ability to talk about the team in a cultural way or in a societal way, where that often has led to maybe necessary negative coverage over not the team itself, but of the events that happen in the stadiums or some of the reaction to the team and their actions. And I do think that there's been a decent job done on that over the last couple of months. The covering of the knee, for example, has been very interesting, and how this English team has embedded itself in English society.
Okay, yeah, just a couple of other ones here. I'd support England, says Con Kong. if they were playing Tyrone. From Anna here, he says. And Damien says, I'm English and never boo our anthem, but I always switch the sound off, which I don't quite get. He's booing his own anthem. That's slightly odd. And then and plenty more as well besides.
We're going to have the Italian anthem obviously on Sunday, so we're good to go. Well, enough of this anthem talk, because it's time for a much bigger deal. It's time for the crappy quiz.
Oh, you're kidding me! September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell?
Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It's the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday we pit three of Team Off the Ball up against each other in a no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant today has been questioned time and again about why he's supporting England this week. People have been stopping him in the street and asking why he's been releasing pretty scary videos roaring on England from the comfort of his own home. He's had to stop every single person in their tracks and say, no, I'm not Ross Kemp. Give it up for Phil the Power Egan.
No, I'm Phil Mitchell, not Grant Mitchell.
Phil, are you beaming into us from 2035?
I'm going to...
My eyes.
While you're chit-chatting away, and this, by the way, all the antics and the build-up to this quiz are basically trying to disrupt me. So I'm going to try and maybe you might turn off my picture, and I'll try and get reset here, because...
No, I mean, this is
I like it. Do you remember that show Highway to Heaven? Is anybody old enough to remember that?
I'm just missing a halo, to be honest.
It's the alien version of Mr. Burns.
It's like
with
when
the green outline.
Yeah, you open the window first thing in the morning, like, oh, it's bright out there. So, yeah, I'll do a bit of shimmying while you're introducing the other members of the team, and I'll try and get into a darker...
Personally, Phil, I think you should just leave it. It's like, I
like it.
It's a beautiful halo effect.
I want to find a dark corner, to be honest, for this quiz.
Our next contestant today has the ticket bought and the sandwiches made and the flash good tea at the ready. Me, they aren't playing for another 9 days, but when you're taking on the Dubs, you've got to have your preparations done early. Ready for the big trip back up to the big smoke. It is the Meath Hillbilly, Tommy Rooney.
Hello, folks. How are we all doing?
Very well. Welcome back to the quiz.
Thank you. Nice to be back. It's been a while.
You've left Clare?
Just for the day, yeah. I had to come back up to Meath for at the end of my holidays for a day. That was it. Just a quick visit.
Sign off the papers, get the transfer to a Clare club completed. Is that it?
No, you know me well. I know there's a bit of gentle joking on there. You know, I'd never do something like that. But no, that's definitely not the case.
Our last contestant today is the Gianni Versace of the sports broadcasting world, designing only the best silks for you to wear in your day-to-day life. The difference between this guy and Versace never did a tap in his life for charity. Give it up for Adrian. Who's your daddy, Barry?
You sure about that?
No, he actually did. There's a great big gala dinner, but you know what?
That's what's going to follow, the T-shirt stuff.
I hope so. The Adrian Barry gala dinner on behalf of Donny is what we all need in our life. As ever, the format is the classic crappy quiz with a series of questions on a range of themes. Then it's onto the slip and slide of trivia, which is a rapid fire round. You can podcast the crappy quiz on otbsports.com or the OTB Sports app. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to click the thumbs up. Please send any questions you have via postcard to Crappy Quiz Quizmaster, Off the Ball Towers, Marconi House, Diggs Lane, Dublin 2. I've been asked to read out a statement from last week. I don't particularly care for the statement, but I've been told to do so. The Quiz Control Committee, the QCC, has completed its review of a potential error during last week's quiz. It has been ruled that Nathan Murphy was awarded an extra point during the Fun Free Magic number round. However, given the number of phases between the error and the conclusion, the QCC has decided that the result will stand, and Nathan Murphy remains quiz winner and current champ, with Phil Egan being offered a chance to avenge that loss this week. Fairness is, of course, the core principle of the crappy quiz, and we thank all sides for their cooperation during this investigation. This is like saying that, I don't know, San Marino, after they got smashed 8-0 by Germany, had a goal that was wrongly ruled offside. This does not matter one bit.
It does,
Nathan smashed you all last week, was a deserving winner, and he's not here to defend himself this week. So I think we can move swiftly on, Phil.
Well, I just think it's a worry that if the rules aren't being adhered to, then it doesn't really set the tone for the rest of the quiz.
Well, I mean, that's just your opinion, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Has the CCCC, QCC, QQQCC been had a corporate rebrand?
Why? What used to be?
It used to be all the C's, didn't it? It was like
No,
40 C's.
no. The GAA then came up with a CCCCC, which was based on the QCC.
Right.
Round 1 is the boring questions round. Never multiple choice. Phil, question 1 for you. For which English club did Roberto Mancini make 4 appearances during a loan spell from Lazio in 2001?
Leicester City.
Correct.
That was
nice
easy.
question.
That was easy.
They're easy if you know them.
Was it easy, Adrian?
I was all over that one. Have to say. Yeah.
Right. Okay. We'll take your word for it. Tommy.
I like how Phil fixed his light.
Like what?
I like how Phil fixed his light.
I must say the contrast here is like Tommy's beautifully lit. Tommy looks like he's about to drop a commercial unboxing video. Like, hey guys, this is what I've got in the shoebox today. Tommy, question 1 for you. Name the last county not called Wexford to get within single digits of Dublin in the Leinster Senior Football Championship.
I thought it was 9 points. Was it Carlow?
It's not Carlow.
No, was that not Kildare? Was that not 17-9, no?
Kildare is the correct answer. No, I think Carlow was a bit more than that. Kildare won or lost the 2017 Leinster final by 9 points.
9 points, yeah, okay, that's fair enough. Maybe Carlow was before that or something.
Adrian, name the last man not called Federer, Djokovic, Nadal or Murray to win the men's singles title at Wimbledon.
Oh, that's a
So
toughie.
there's 2 from all coming into this on. I know you've absolutely hit me with that stinker. We go again, will you?
Well, you haven't got a question asked of you. Let's just be clear.
I know, but I'm just saying it was 2 from all.
Name the last man not called Federer, Djokovic, Nadal or Murray to win the men's singles title at Wimbledon.
Just give us your suggestions.
Wrote us through the
Nathan Murphy sort of pick through
the list,
yes.
the library of knowledge.
Bum 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 bum.
Bum 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 bum.
Come
on. Leighton Hewitt.
Correct.
Get in.
2002, wasn't it?
Oh my God.
2002, I think, yeah.
3 from all, lads.
Sensational.
Round 2 is the finals of the European Championships round. Great answer, Adrian. It's been emotional and it's been real, and we sure hope the best team wins on Sunday. Here's a bit of trivia on the finals of yesteryear in the Euros. Phil, in what year did the highest scoring Euros final take place?
Oh, I think I'd say 2012.
Correct. There were 2 possible options.
I thought it was 84, no?
No, 2012 or 1976 were the 2 options. 4-0 Spain, obviously, and then 2-2 between Czechoslovakia and West Germany in 76. So would have accepted either. Well done, Phil. You're 2 from 2. Tommy, you really need this. Only 2 nations have ever got to the final of the Euros without winning it. Can you name either?
What was the answer there for 1974?
There was no Euros in 1974.
It was a World Cup here.
Czech Republic?
No, it's not Czech Republic. Belgium was one, and Yugoslavia. So Belgium lost in 1980 final, Yugoslavia lost in 1960, and in 1968, neither country has ever won the Euros. Adrian, who was the only player to have scored in 2 different European Championships finals?
Oof.
This is an easy one now.
I'm going to go with a Spanish player. I'm probably going to go with a Spanish player, Jojo, and I'm thinking Fernando Torres.
Correct.
Yeah,
Adrian Barry, 2 from 2. Adrian and Tommy were described in the comments last week as the entertainment duo of the crappy quiz. I think Adrian may need to be recategorised.
Yes, absolutely.
Into the brains of the quiz, alongside other greats such as Nathan, Phil, and John Duggan.
Why didn't I get recategorised as the brains when I won 4 in a row before I got my momentum stalled?
Too much brawn, Tommy. You can't have brains and brawn, it turns out, according to our crappy quiz listeners. Round 3 is the English sporting success round. England are enjoying being good at sport right now. We are happy for them. Here are some questions based on all this happiness. Phil, question 3 for you. Who was England's top scorer at the 1966 World Cup?
Oof.
Oh, you're on mute there, Phil. Or unless you're just like speaking.
I think that's
miming.
null and void. I think it's null and void.
I'm saying Jeff Hurst.
There we go.
You're saying Jeff Hurst, final answer? Correct.
Like, how easy is that? Why is Phil getting a soft run of it here? Well, are you trying to wind me up?
I thought that he might have said Bobby Charlton, to be honest. Like, it could have.
But he scored a hat-trick in the final.
Yeah, I know, but like, I mean, like, not everybody was alive for that, Tommy. Not everybody's seen the full match back. Well done, Phil.
Let's see what the next 2 questions look like.
Well, Tommy, this is a very easy one for you, in fairness. The super over that decided the 2019 Cricket World Cup final had everyone watching Eoin Morgan's England edge their way to glory. Who were they playing in that final?
Huh?
Oh my God, this is like an absolute tap-in.
Tap-in.
What sport?
Cricket.
Ah, stop. Eoin Morgan, and he's asking what sport. Like, this is worrying for you, Tommy.
Can I get the question one more time?
The super over that decided the 2019 Cricket World Cup had everyone watching Eoin Morgan's England edge their way to glory. Who did they beat in that final? The same day as that great Djokovic-Federer final.
What a day of sport that was.
Kerry, Mayo and Killarney. Cork, Kilkenny in the hurling. That was a bumper day of sport. And England versus blank in the best World Cup final possibly in any sport ever.
New Zealand.
Correct.
I knew it. I was only messing with you.
Off the mark. Tommy Rooney.
Pure guess.
Adrian. It swang very, very low in 2003 when England went all the way in the Rugby World Cup. Can you name any of the teams they faced in their pool?
Oh my God. This might be an outrageously ridiculous shout.
Like, there is only about 12 countries that play rugby, and you can name 1 of 5.
Throwing heat at rugby there.
I'm just trying to figure out whether the Australia game was a repeat of a pool game. Bumpity bumpity bum bum bum. I think it was, so I'm going to go Australia.
Australia were in Ireland's pool, remember?
Oh, of course they were.
And England were not in that pool. South Africa, Samoa, Uruguay and Georgia were your possible options there.
Should always say Georgia in those instances, really.
Yeah.
Round 4 is the Fun Free Magic Number round. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. I'm going to say that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper. I'm also going to ask for your pens once the music ends. So if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of games that have been decided by a penalty shootout at Euro 2020 so far, plus the highest number of consecutive Wimbledon titles Roger Federer won during his career, plus the number of tries scored by Josh Adams already on this Lions tour, plus the number of Leinster Senior Football Championship medals won by Stephen Cluxton. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads. So it is the number of games that have gone to penalties at the Euros so far, the number of consecutive Wimbledon wins Roger Federer earned at his peak, so the most consecutive wins, the number of tries scored by Josh Adams already on this Lions tour, and then how many Leinster titles does Stephen Cluxton have for Dublin. Adrian's done. Pens down, lads. Tommy's done. Phil, what have you got?
I've gone for 24.
24, Tommy? Say it.
I clocked up 26,
what number?
but I wrote down 27. I wrote down 27.
Adrian?
26.
26. The answer is 32.
Woo!
What?
Tommy, back in the game.
Got away with that.
Gets 2 points. Adrian, you get 1 point. Phil Egan.
Oh, no.
All of a sudden gets done in the magic number round. So the number of games that have been decided by a penalty shootout at Euro 2020 been 3.
2.
And 4.
Oh.
The number of consecutive Wimbledon titles Roger Federer won. The highest number of consecutive is 5. He won them all between 03 and 07. The number of tries scored by Josh Adams already on the Lions tour is 8.
Ah, that's where I went short.
And then Stephen Cluxton has 16
15.
Leinster titles, an extraordinary number, and that brings your total to 32, which brings Tommy to 3 points. Phil, you're on 3 points. Adrian is on 3 points.
Hang on a second.
Phil can go first.
Hang on, what a second.
Is that right? How many points was I on coming into this?
You were on two.
Two.
And now you've got one for getting the second closest.
Phil, you get all your questions right so far.
I did, yeah. Apparently they were too easy, so I got them all right.
3-3-3, is it?
Yeah.
It is 3-3-3.
That is one stroke of absolute schluck
Hey, listen.
out of you.
One of you boys can go first.
What we're going to
tell me.
What we're going to have to do here, because we've never had a three-way tie, I don't think, going into the thing, is we're going to do the how many Irish caps tiebreaker to determine it. But I will need you to write it down in your paper, because I've only tossed a coin, and there's only two sides to a coin, not three, as some of you might be aware. So, can you give me the number and write this down, please? And we're going to do this in 10 seconds. How many Ireland caps does Jason McAteer have? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, etc., etc. Adrian.
Well, hang on now. Can we all lift up our bit of paper here? Because Tommy's like...
Tommy, Phil, okay, what have you got?
52.
Can you see mine? 49.
49, Tommy?
42.
42. Adrian, bang on, 52.
Whoa!
Yeah,
I mean,
look, you get to go
I
first.
get to choose. I get to choose on. Obviously, having won it.
Okay, go for it.
Of course.
Yeah.
For all his guff, get in, Tommy. And I'll go last. Tommy, Phil, me. Sorry, Tommy, me, Phil.
Tommy, me. Okay.
Yeah, because if I put Phil in, he's gonna. That's it. He's done. He's gonna run away.
Okay, I like what you've done here.
Mind games, unbelievable.
Tommy Rooney, are you ready?
Yeah, I just laughed at Phil's
Your
shot.
40 seconds starts now. Which fashion designer produced Italy's now famous Euro 2020 suits?
Vernacci.
No, Armani. Who will partner Leona Maguire to represent Ireland in golf at the Tokyo Games, Adrian?
Her sister.
No, Stephanie Meadow. Who is England's top scorer at the Euro so far, Phil?
Harry Kane.
Correct. The Open is taking place at what course next week?
Royal St George's.
Correct. Who came second in Italy's group at the Euros?
Time.
Too long.
Switzerland.
It's Wales. James Cronin has left Munster to join which French team, Tommy?
How?
No, Biarritz. In what South African city are the Cell Sea Sharks based, Adrian?
Cape Town.
No, it's Durban. Which means Phil Egan has won it because Tommy and Adrian both went all the way down to 1. Phil only managed to go down to 2 in a shambolic rapid fire round. Phil Egan, take it away.
I thought Phil ended up with 4.
That was an absolute shambles. I mean, from the start, walking in the wrong lighting, my mic issues, everything. Sometimes you get the win, you get back on the road, and you say nothing about this, and we just move on to next week.
You can grind out the results.
You're like the Dubs, Phil. They've lost everything. 76 All-Ireland medals in the last 18 months, but they've risen above all those circumstances, and they can still perform. They were even taken out of Croke Park last week.
Yeah, written off, Tommy. Written off. Already written off.
You are the Dubs of this quiz.
Redemption for last week. Congratulations, Phil Egan. Cheers, Tommy. Cheers, Adrian. We'll see you here next week again for another crappy quiz. Chat to you then.
Chris Martin.
Oh, you're kidding me. September. Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right? I know it's not right. Anybody else? Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Well, that was as shambolic as ever. I'm fairly sure Phil ended up on 4 on, and that was why, I mean, even with that last question, I was a bit... He started off on 3. 1, 2, 3. He got 2 right, and he got 1 wrong.
So 4.
Yeah. I'm only bringing that up by way of making myself feel a little bit better about having been defeated by, the power of Grayskull.
It's a good point you make. To be honest, he's still the winner. But thank you for being
pedantic. That's totally fair enough. I mean, I think when it comes to Crappy Quiz, these things are really important. Thanks to you for tuning in this morning. It's been, by the way, somebody points out on YouTube, is Vernacci sold in Duns? Vernacci. What?
What was that?
That was his answer to the Italian designer. Vernacci. My mother calls Tommy Hilfiger Tommy Hilfinger, and I think that Tommy is right in the same. He's right in the same bracket there.
Vernacci is the me very. I'd say vernacular, isn't it? Vernacci. That's. It sounds like a designer.
There's a lot of people all aboard the Vernacci train. That is pretty much it from us for this morning. On your I mean, I was going to ask you for your highlight of the weekend, but I don't know. Some of the GAA is pretty uninspiring.
Yeah, no, it's Sunday night, isn't it? Sunday night is absolutely where it's at, and it could be terrible, could be great, could be anything in between.
I suspect it's going to go at least extra time. Like, it's going to be cagey no matter what happens. And that's the good thing about the two teams that are left in it, that, like, it's not... I was delighted to see Denmark going out, to be honest, when they did, and like there was a fair bit of, not quite dross, because it's been such an unbelievable tournament for teams that you never expected to perform and achieve what they did, to achieve way beyond where they should have been, and some of the bigger, certainly traditionally bigger nations obviously getting dumped out earlier. But you do like to see the heavy hitters in the final, and we've definitely got that.
Yeah, and I do think, like, I mean, the Denmark story was so good, and I think that they'd actually back that up by being a really excellent team as well. But there were a couple of shocks in the tournament where you're like, is this actually good for the tournament in general? Like, France getting dumped out is the obvious one. You would have loved to have seen that game against Spain to see how that one would have panned out, especially given what we had seen later on that night in the Belgium-Italy game, which for me was the game of the tournament. Actually, I think that was just such a brilliant game. There's such high stakes, and two very clear identities going toe to toe with a bunch of quality on both sides. We just kind of missed that at times, and like the same thing could have been true as well if Spain had managed to top their group. I think actually having England against Spain rather than Ukraine last Saturday night could have been an incredible event, actually. We missed out on a few of those, but
we
then
missed out on Spain versus France because the French let us down.
That's what I just said as well. Like, I mean, that would have been the early game last Friday. So either way, Spain maybe could have gone up against better opposition earlier as a result of maybe some failings elsewhere, and there could have been a few better knockout ties. But all in all, it's been a cracking tournament, like one of the best Euros I can remember.
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. And when you look at the rest of the best of the rest, almost, you kind of feel that Spain are probably the only team. Like, Spain kind of trucked along in a way that, like, at times you thought, Jesus, like, what was that game? They went 1-0 down and got back to 3-1, and then...
Tommy wants to put himself on air, by the way. He's texting us here. We've only got a minute.
Go on, Tommy. Vernacci, let's have it.
Hey, lad, there's a summer sale on in Vernacci at the minute.
Where did I come from?
Actually, I had a look there. I was seeing, geez, this is the name. Just like Adrian was opportunistic last week, he set up his own brand, his own design, his own abconcocts@gmail.com. Go order a shirt, folks, if you haven't already. I was thinking maybe there's something in Vernacci here, but yeah, they sell lace. There's a lace collection that's actually
He's given us way more information here this morning than he intends.
Vernacci is a brand perceived for its vitality, conventional craftsmanship, innovative design plans, and superior quality, whilst offering moderate, exquisite, and modern plans to their customers.
Can I just say, like, in terms of the rapid fire round, that was tough. That was a tough question.
The Armani suits have been as big a part of this Euros as Raheem Sterling.
I'll be right, yeah. No, I was poor form on my behalf.
Vernacci were like sort of 10-1 to feature there.
At least I come out with an Italian sounding word. It could have been anything.
Tommy, fair play for coming on to defend the indefensible.
Yeah, fair play to Phil for winning it, because it was a shocking quiz. I'll put it that way.
It was brutal, and with Phil on there, Tommy, we're always going to be up against it, let's face it. Good man, enjoy the weekend. Tommy Vernacci there. We'll have to rebrand him. You have been watching OTB AM this morning, brought to you by Gillette. Good mornings start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. That is it from almost it from OTB AM this morning. If you've missed anything from the show, you can head along and subscribe to the OTB AM podcast. 2 hours of sports breakfast goodness every weekday morning. Back on Monday, Paddy Andrews, David Myler, Alan Quinlan, and plenty more as well besides. What more would you want? And stay tuned to OTB channels and OTB Sports Radio right across the day. The Euro Show coming your way from 11 o'clock with Eamon Dunphy alongside Shane and Enda. And right now bringing you Brian O'Driscoll on the lines.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any making sense of it. We were looking forward to a test series against South Africa. It looks like we're getting a test series against the Lions, or against the Sharks, I should say. Twice in a week. I know that we were having to deal with this because of COVID, and there's, talk about the adaptability and reacting to new circumstances, but at times it's becoming farcical. And just hearing a little bit of intel from inside the camp. You know, you have to really feel for these players and management. This isn't normal in any shape or form. This is not a Lions tour as we know it. And even the watered down version, you know, other than what we're seeing on the field, it can't be any fun. It simply can't be. And that's what Lions tours are about. And that's how you tie groups together, and that's how you give them a sense of purpose, is because they've integrated themselves and they've become Lions, of not these individuals from 4 different countries. So I feel as though we're we're going down a very dangerous path from the Lions' perspective, from the future brand, and the trouble that's potentially coming. But I don't know what to make of it. It's just farcical. It's a money play bigger than we had anticipated.
That is the most interesting point in this, that financially there is an imperative, it seems, for this tour to go ahead. But as you say, the actual consequences of potentially a test series having to be called off 2-3 days in advance because we don't know what way COVID is going to go. But financially, the long-term impact on the Lions and the brand that has been built up to be one of the strongest brands in world sport over decades upon decades, and commercially that is such a behemoth, you would have to wonder what damage this is doing behind the scenes to the Lions commercially.
You would have to. I think this is trying to break even, this tour. It's not, or even suffer a small loss. The reality is, commercially, it's a disaster. There's no crowds. I can't imagine what merchandise sales is like. The thing about the Lions is, and Austin Healy wrote an article in the Telegraph today, and he made some pretty bold statements. But the reality is, it's turned into a money-making machine. It has, and it's the thing is that is usually wrapped in the supporter base, the sea of red, the community experiences, and the players having a great time and getting to play and train with people they have huge respect for. So I suppose the money-making component gets lost in all of that, and it's palatable, whereas it's less palatable at the moment because, the Lions, more than any other team in rugby, I think, is dependent on the crowds, on that supporter base, on those 4 countries coming together. And they're having none of that. They're not able to feed from any energy whatsoever coming from the crowd. You're getting a totally diluted version of what being a Lion is all about. So all of these factors put into the melting pot are actually causing, in my opinion, damage to the overall brand. That said, I understand the need for them to go and try and see out this tour, because it's potentially financial ruin and bankruptcy if they don't manage to get through this test series. We're talking tens of millions lost, and who ends up footing the bills? It would be the home unions, and whether they have the stomach to do that. There's just so many different aspects coming from all sides that it feels like it's a bit of a no-win situation, no matter what comes of it.
And the players are the pawns in all of this. As a player, what can you do if you're in the midst of this and you've signed up for a tour and there are positive tests around you? There is a complete unknown as to how this virus is going to go in South Africa over the coming weeks. As a player, do you just have to suck it up and shut up and play? Or do you think actually, as this continues, the players may start to find a bit of a voice?
Good question, Nathan. I don't know is the honest answer to that. I think, first of all, you have to remember as well, they're very much in the honeymoon period of being on a Lions tour. They're quite well versed in dealing with COVID over the course of the last 15 months. So all of these circumstances, as much as it's new on this Lions tour, it's not particularly new to them. There's incessant testing. There's been games called off, for almost every player, I would imagine, involved in that squad. So it's all about adjusting to the circumstances. But as things go on and as games potentially get cancelled and guys don't get the game time that they would have envisaged, they aren't having the experience that all previous Lions tours have and previous Lions players have talked about it being the pinnacle of their career. When they, particularly these new Lions, when they come in and realise this isn't the pinnacle of playing rugby, this is a slog, this is a battle. And I don't care what great team spirit you manage to build up through the success in the games. It's very hard to keep 36 or 37 players happy where there's no fun. There's no real getting out and seeing the country, seeing the supporters, feeling the energy from them. I don't know what their days off entail, whether they're going to be able to go off and play golf or do shark diving or all that carry on. That's part of touring South Africa. That's part of the experiential piece, and that has such a huge impact on the overall happiness of a squad, of people enjoying themselves, having fun, enjoying one another's company. And as I said, they're only week 1 into traveling over there. They've had a couple of weeks in Jersey. It's week 3, 4 and 5, particularly 4 and 5, when the test matches come around and players realise they're not in the reckoning, that they're going to really come up against it. And I wonder, on the basis of that, does Warren Gatland then have his hand forced a little bit where he's going to have to pick very different test teams over the course of the 3 weeks just to keep all players on side? Because if you start losing 5 or 10 players because they're not involved in the test setup, that's such a massive negative knock-on consequence to the rest of the squad. So does he need to keep things freshened through the first couple of test matches, irrespective of what the results are in them? Maybe you'll have to look at that approach as being something he might have to go to.
It does feel as though already they can't afford another 24 hours like the one that they have just had. And when you listen to Ian Henderson after the match saying that 2 hours before kickoff the players are sitting in their hotel rooms, they don't know if the match is going to take place, they don't know what players are going to be available if the match can take place, and that all of that just developed over the next half an hour. There has been a press conference this afternoon. This is the Lions managing director, Ben Calverley. So he's been talking about the lengths that they're going to in order to allow the tour proceed safely.
Well, look, what I would say is that it is a challenge, right? This is a challenge. I'm definitely not going to sit here and say that this is easy, but we are absolutely determined to make it work, and we've put measures in place to make it work. So we're living in a very strict biosecure environment where we're governed by very strict protocols. We have a medical advisory group in place that has independent virologists and infectious disease specialists that advise us on what we can and can't do. This is the same for the Lions and the Springbok camp. We're tested frequently, minimum 3 times a week. We have no interactions with the general public. We're playing in far fewer venues than would originally have been the case. And of course, we don't have fans in the venues. So we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that this tour will go ahead, and we are determined to make it a success.
They're clearly taking every possible precaution, yet still one member of the management team tested positive. They had 4 close contacts yesterday, 2 of whom were players, 2 staff. He was saying in the press conference that they immediately isolated that group. But then, having tested everybody else, another player tested positive. It seems like it was a very low-level positive, and because of that, there were 8 more close contacts. They're hopeful that that player, having been retested, it came back negative, will come back negative again, which will mean they're able to play, and all the close contacts will be able to play. But once again, Warren Gatland will probably be waiting until the day of the game before he can actually select a starting 15. Austin Healy, you mentioned, was saying maybe they should just bring the test series back to the UK. Tommy Bowe was on with us last night building up saying something similar. Could they actually just look to flying everybody back to the UK and play the 3 test series back in the UK? Is that something they should be thinking about?
I think it's got to be taken as a possible viable option, just on the basis that, if the test series isn't finished, it potentially could bankrupt either the Lions or indeed the Springboks. So when you're looking at the severity of those outcomes, you have to take on board every option available to you. And they couldn't manage to get the series played in the UK when that was touted 3-4 months ago. There was talk about no one would underwrite it. That's my understanding of it. But anyway, it was decided that South Africa was going to be safe enough to come and play it in. That's clearly transpired to not be the case. So if they could guarantee, the two teams to travel back to the UK, do their 10-day quarantine and potentially play a test series and guarantee, full stadia. I don't know, logistically, can you even turn things around in that short space of time? And Twickenham, people are talking, Austin was talking about Twickenham, Cardiff and Murrayfield, but you have to remember that these things are years in the making. They can't just be flipped and turn around in no time whatsoever. So as much as it's easy for us to shout options and ideas, I think the reality is I'm not sure whether they can be achieved. But at the moment, there's huge skepticism as to whether you're going to get to see 3 test series against South Africa in South Africa under the current circumstances of what's happened in the last week. So I would imagine that conversation is maybe taking place just to test the water as to whether that could happen if it continues going the way it currently is.
It must be putting an enormous mental strain on the players, and one that they can't get a release from in the way that you normally would on a line store, which you just outlined, because they don't know where this virus is going. And yes, while the players are young, fit, healthy men, we have heard any amount of stories of long COVID, of the effect it can have on people. And also, not everybody in that camp is a young, fit, healthy man. There are plenty of people behind the scenes who are in their 50s, in their 60s, who are now in a part of the world where this virus is running rampant. So I'm sure it's a very, very nervous time for everybody who's in the camp.
It undoubtedly is. And I think you've seen it with other sports and the impact that long time away from family and friends in restrictive circumstances, what it's done to their mental health. And I think specifically you're probably talking about the cricketers are the ones that seem to be impacted significantly in the past. I would have huge concerns, I really would, about the mental state of the players after 5 or 6 weeks of doing this, and the uncertainty. And see, we're getting to watch 80 minutes at the end of, once on a Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday, and once on a Saturday. Think about all that other time in between. And there's only so much time you can train as well. And players will be at their happiness, expressing themselves and getting to play and train with with the best players in the UK and Ireland. Something very exciting about Lions training. But the reality is everything else is downtime or time away from the game. And that is as important a part to play in a Lions tour as the training and the preparation piece. So I would really fear for the mental state of the players, of the staff as well, the circumstances that they're finding themselves in. Because you're right, it does feel a little bit like they're the pawns. But the reality is, and I don't want to be sitting on the fence on both sides of the argument, but the reality is, if this doesn't happen, is it catastrophic to the Lions in 4 years' time and 8 years' time? Potentially. So I can see why it's being forced through, even though morally it even seems wrong with with what's going on in South Africa.
It'll be interesting if there are any injuries, how easy they will find it to call players up who are still back in Ireland, England, Scotland and Wales, looking on at this thinking, actually, yes, I might have dreamed of playing for the Lions, but maybe I'm better off staying at home.
Yeah, you're not going to turn it down though, Nathan, no matter what. Even if you've been a 2 or 3 time Lion and you get called, it's too big an honour, and it's too prestigious to feel as though you can pass something up like that. And sorry, I'm only asking from my own point of view. If that had been the case, I would have jumped at the opportunity of going down and trying to force my way into a test team. But it's bananas where this has gone to, and how it's been allowed progress the way it has, and it feels like they can't get off this runaway train at the moment. That you're almost waiting day by day for a kind of change of route or a different eventuality, and that's why it makes it so farcical at times. The fact they're playing the Sharks, twice in 1 week is ridiculous. But yet they need the game time, so I can understand why they're doing that as well. But I think there's a lot more to play out in this, obviously with regard to games and the potential for cancelled games, but also what's this tour is going to look like in 2 weeks' time. I know it's 16 days to the first test match. In 2 weeks' time, where are these players at, where they've 2 more weeks of being stuck in a Joburg hotel or a Cape Town hotel, and they've told all the stories they have, they've made all the flat whites that they can have, and they've done all the fines that possibly can without actually having any crack. I would really worry about where it's going to end up.
It's such an unprecedented situation. I'm not sure how anything that's gone on in previous tours can compare, but Tommy Bowe was making the point last night from a rugby point of view that the Lions are probably better prepared for dealing with situations like this, like they had yesterday, where there's radical changes to the team 2 hours before kickoff, because that's part of the gig with the Lions, that things change rapidly. You're always having new partnerships, you're always having betting in processes, that from a purely rugby point of view, actually, if this was with Ireland, you'd be freaking out completely because you spent months preparing everything to a T, whereas with the Lions, actually, there's always a little bit of the off-the-cuffness that makes it so brilliant.
And that's a throwback to amateur times, where the expectation was to, play Wednesday and sometimes, double up and play Saturday. And that's the circumstance that they find themselves in previous tours and all the more so now, when you're looking at a 7-1 split on the bench, it makes for funny viewing. But, having those conversations with Hamish Watson or Toby Faletau, as Warren Gatland said he was, about the potential for them to end up in the wing or in the centre, I suppose you are better equipped in the Lions to deal with that, because you don't have any hard and fast rules as to how you do anything. This is a number of individuals that play for their national teams all being pushed into the same team for a shortened, condensed period of time over 7 weeks and then made fit, which, I talked about before being a bizarre concept in itself. So, yes, you absolutely have to have an agility to different circumstances, to maybe doing something that your national team doesn't or that your club team doesn't do, but that you have to show a flexibility because that's what Lions is about. So I would agree with Tommy that they're better equipped to be able to deal with the issues being thrown at them, albeit they're getting more and more challenging by the day.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved